All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. All right, check this out, check this out, check this out. It's Friday, Law of One, right? Okay, so it is hot in the United States right now, well, at least the southern half, anyways. It's 103 or 105 here, depending on what app you look at today. It's supposed to be 106 or 109, depending on what app you look at here today. That means it'll probably be about 106. Tomorrow's supposed to be 109, and then it's going to have a cooling trend down to 99, 98, just below 100 degrees for a few days. That's normal for July, but the news is reporting like as if it's the catastrophic ending of the world, and it must be due to global warming because of everything the humans have ever done to have a summer that is normal with normal temperature. And they keep saying Phoenix, Arizona was 114, setting a record the other day. And I'm like, that's really weird because I was in Arizona and used to live there. And in 2013, when I was there at this time of year in the middle of July, the average temperature in Phoenix, Arizona was 125 degrees in July, in the week of July between the 4th and the 23rd of July, because I was there and it was the hottest July on record. And that was in 2013. So that was 10 years ago. And they're acting like and lying and saying, because I was there, I lived in Arizona for almost 5 years, right? 3.5, 4 years. I was there for a while, 2013 to late early 2013 to late 2016. So I was actually there for 3.5 years. And in that time period, it's normal in July for the temperature in Phoenix to be above 110 degrees. In fact, the state of Arizona counts how many days, especially in the valley, how many days are below 110 during the summer months, June, July, August, September, and going into October, because the average temperature is above 110 every single day. So you count how many days are below 110. And when it gets below 100 degrees or below 110 down to 100 degrees, everyone rolls their windows down in their car and just drives because it's nice and cool out, because you get used to that. So why do I bring that up? Well, it has to do with the misinformation and lying that's going on, trying to sell everybody the fear that the world is heating up and we're all dying, and it's because we're using these cars that are burning fossil fuels to drive, in this attempt to get everybody to drive electric cars, which 90% of all the electricity in this country and around the world is created by coal, which it pollutes the environment more by 100 times than the pollution from an automobile driving on the road for the same amount of time. Okay, so these electric vehicles that they're creating, first of all, 90% of all the parts for the computer and the electricity for to drive the vehicles and to make the vehicles come from all of our enemies, no friends whatsoever. We're not manufacturing those in the United States. So we're wanting to transfer everybody from a fossil fuel, which the United States has a reserve of underground that could feed the entire planet for up to 175 years at current levels of consumption. However, they're trying to get everybody to drive electric vehicles, which would make sure that we rely on China for all the parts to put together the electric vehicles and the batteries. And then we would have to mine coal and burn the coal because our solar is crap, which most of it is Chinese products. Our wind turbines are crap, and 90% of those are Chinese built products. I'm not stating anything that is a lie. And our water that we get, our turbines, it only produces 1% or 2% of the total electricity in the United States. So that would suggest that all the parts for everything that we have to have would come from a country that is trying to destroy the United States and turn it into a communist country. And the people in charge in this country are complacent with that. Just just wanting to put that out there to start the day. Okay. So there's my soapbox for the day. Kevin, welcome. Denise, welcome. Kari, welcome. If you don't say hello in the chat, I don't know you're here. Right? So welcome. So I wanted to stand on the soapbox for a moment because what you guys are everyone in the world is concerned with is this evil religion of who's in charge and who said what and who's doing what, when the truth is both sides are complacent. Both sides all have the same exact agenda. Both sides are nothing but priests in the religion of evil. And the entire thing that they're selling you on the news worldwide is to keep you fighting over planned events that they manufacture the entire time so that you will give them money, so you'll reelect them and think you're fighting against your opponent, which is the other citizens around the world. Meanwhile, they are enriching themselves and stealing all of your money and giving it to themselves via corporations and payments for what they own. Meanwhile, they have you looking completely at a different thing. And if you in any way look at anything they're doing, they call you a crazy lunatic and a conspiracy theorist. And in this country, they use the same terms that they used, or the same style that they used against the Templar Knights over 1,000 years ago, where they called them heretics and said they were satanic and they were racist and that they peed on the skull of Mary or Jesus, which they claimed that the Knights claimed they had. And so they were all had to be excommunicated from the church and tortured to death. And that was literally what the church charged everyone with for almost 2,000 years, for 1,800 years, until it became passé and nobody listened to them anymore. And now what they do is they shame you the same way. They call you a racist. They call you a sexist. They say that you're going after the weak and the meek and that you are of the religion of evil, which is their religion. And so they use the same exact tools. And it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, they go after their own. Literally, you have here in the United States, you have Robert Kennedy Jr., who is trying to primary Joe Biden, who is obviously, in my opinion, and I only say that so that I won't get sued, but however, my opinion is a little bit better than anyone else's because I have a 79-year-old Alzheimer's patient that I've been taking care of now for 7 years, and I see the signs daily in the progression for the last 7 years, last 8 years, because even before I moved in to help my mother and got her under my roof, I was living in Arizona and still dealing with her. I see that same thing progressing with what I can see, what they allow you to see from Joe Biden. And I saw it when Ronald Reagan was the president and also had Alzheimer's, and they hid that. The Republicans hid that for almost 4 solid years. And then used him as the scapegoat and told everybody, hey, whoa, he's got Alzheimer's. So all that stuff that he did was all because he was crazy and we couldn't stop him. We didn't even know he had it. That's what they're going to do with Joe Biden. Watch, mark my words. They're going to do the same thing with Joe Biden. All of a sudden, they're going to do all of this hideous crap and they're going to go, we couldn't stop him and we should have listened to you guys. He is crazy. And they'll blame everything on him for being crazy and try to get out from under him. But that is probably won't happen until after this next election cycle, but we'll see, because things progress in a very acute manner when you're in the stage that he's in. So tomorrow he could wake up and not even actually know who anyone is, no matter what medication that they have him on. I know because I've researched that and the medication that they have. So unless they have some secret medication only for the rich people that do a better job, and even then the progression of what he has is not reversible. So you can't cure it, not yet. They don't research that anyways. Okay, so there's my soapbox for the day. I wanted to talk about that because what we're talking about in the law of one pertains to that, because they're literally talking about structures around the world that empower people and use their, tantalize your imagination for spirituality. So we're getting into what the Orion Crusaders were and are doing, as well as what the Orion Confederation or Alliance, or depending on what you want to call that. In fact, I know that they call themselves today the Orion Council of Light, and the people down here, which I'm a part of that council, we call ourselves the Orion Coalition of Light. Ra doesn't refer to us as that because we were still undercover 40 years ago and did not reveal ourselves to the people. So he just called them the Orion Confederation, which is us and all of the souls down here that Ra knew about but couldn't tell anyone because it wasn't time for us to stand up and tell the world who we are yet. The world wasn't ready for that. And even now I say it to people and people say, you're crazy. People trip on that. Even psychics are like, wait a minute, what? You're not even from this earth. So what is your body? You're like, you can't, no, I'm in a body here legally. That's hard for people to understand. That's why I'm writing about it in my book, which I have to decide whether I'm going to continue writing. I'm already at 50,000 words, over 200 pages. And I don't know how big I want to make it, only because if I make it too large, then people are going to be afraid to read the entire thing because it'll take too long. That's what I did with my first 3 books. I made them shorter, between 135 and 145 or 55 pages, because I didn't want it to be overwhelming when people looked at it. And I'm at that impasse now with the book, which I haven't even named yet. I've been pondering what I'm going to call it. But that's going to explain all this craziness that people are going to think I'm absolutely insane for saying. So, okay, so let's continue with Ra, because Ra's talking about, we're right into the Rapa Nui and Easter Island and them. So I backed up a couple of questions. So I backed up about 2 minutes, which is, I think, 2 questions from where we were last week. And we're going to start here, and then we'll move into, which I don't even have it primed yet. We'll move into the next session, which I already have ready to go. I just don't have it open and ready to, so I'll have to pull it up real quick and open it when we get to that point, but it won't take me very long. Okay, so I'm going to do a sound check. I'm going to turn on Ra and let Ra talk, and you guys let me know if you can hear it okay, whether or not I need to turn the sound up or down, okay? So let's continue with this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, it doesn't have to do with the religion, which I just talked about with what they're doing, but it has to do with their modus operandi, their MO, and structures around the world, which most people, and I don't really address this in this book. I was told to kind of stay on point, and the rest of the stuff I can do in further books to be more diligent, like, for instance, the theologic ideology in the description of what literally is simple to me, that is becoming simple to a lot of people around the world, which has been a mystery to this planet for 5,000 years, is now accessible to people. And I know this, and I've hid this from the world for a year and a half, a year and 7 months. So actually a year and 8 or 9 months now. I've hid that fact from the world because I was trying to see if anyone else knew this knowledge, and I still have yet to meet anyone who does. However, when I tell people it's like an activation, I've done that with the chakras. That everybody thinks that the red ray chakra is the number 1 chakra, and that's wrong. It's a wrongful count. That in fact, there's only one person that I know, and that's Jacqueline Taylor, who, when I mentioned the chakras and how they correctly are, she actually showed me a picture that's going in her book that has, like 25 chakras for the human condition. And she already has the colors, the symbols, the whole nines of this. And I was astounded when she told me that. And she was like, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The red ray chakra is, in fact, this chakra number 3. And this explains a lot for scientists who won't agree to this anyways, because they don't want to have any part of spirituality, because the red ray chakra is 3, and that makes your heart chakra 6, and that makes your crown chakra 9, which is identical to the human condition of 3, 6, and 9. And when that dawned on me, I shifted that, and it was an activation. And then I actually shared it with Cassie, and without telling her why, and it activated her, and she's actually shared it with a couple of people without telling them why. So we were doing an experiment on people and explaining shift the chakras in your mindset of energy, that it's not 1 through 7, it's actually 3 through 9. And when you do that, if you're actually awake enough to understand what's happening, it will actually activate you in a crazy way and expand your consciousness. But if you're not ready for it, you just go, huh? Because, some people are like, what's a chakra? I don't even understand what chakra, chakra, what is that? That's like saying Mjolnir. I remember the movie Thor when he said Mjolnir and the girl was like, Mjolnir, what is Mjolnir? Mjolnir. Right. And he was saying Mjolnir, which actually means lightning. People don't know that. Thor means thunder, and Mjolnir, his war hammer, means lightning. I know this. I have it tattooed on my body. Not the words, but I have the actual war hammer, at least from the 800s, the drawings from the 800s on this earth, on my right leg, almost the entire outside of my right leg from the knee down. And I have also Odin tattooed on my left leg. A bust of Odin on my left leg. Most of my tattoos are Celtic, and all of my tattoos, save 1, 2, are, and those are actually Celtic as well. But they're more modern. All of them are religious tattoos that are Viking and Celtic. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to press play here, and we'll start going. And you guys give me a sound check, and we'll see if it needs to go loud or not. Right? What is that? Sound is so there. It isn't a 1 or 2, just 3 through 9. Oh yeah, no, there is a 1 and 2, Denise, but they're actually below, outside of your body. Just like you have chakras outside of your body that are up above. So the first and second chakra are actually below. It's part of your tree of life. It's part of Tildrassil, which is the Viking word for tree of life. And so in your endocrine system, in the tree of life, which is your pneumogastric center or nerve, you have to remember that is in the lower part of your brain. So 2 chakras below that would literally go down your spine. So they're part of that part of the tree, which is the root system of yours. So on the external, it's actually attached to and mingling with the energy of the earth, which it grounds you. Most people don't even focus on anything outside of the body, and that's how people have been doing that, right? So yeah, Kari, I love that you should put up the colors to show the chakras. So the other 2 colors, I'm not sure what they are. I'd have to ask Jacqueline Taylor again. She gave me the picture, but I don't have it up where I would show it to you. But some of them reoccur in number because they're part of a different octave. So like after the white that you see there, which is outside of the body, that's the one that is the first one that's outside of the body, which we call the crown chakra or the higher self chakra. Then it starts, I believe it starts over, but that's because you're in the, you're in the 7th, 8th, 9th dimension, so everything stays the same. It just shifts up and down. So the rainbow of colors is constant throughout the universe for every level. So when you go to the next octave, which would be 8 through, or for us in our condition 7, but it's literally 8 through 12, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, which is 6 more, and possibly above that. Because she said, like I said, I saw them going up to 25. And I think 25 was red again, but don't quote me on that. I'm just going by memory at this point. But there are more below as well. So whatever there is above, there is below as well. So you have to realize that. Thank you guys for sharing the episode out. So literally, we're ready now, and here's the reason why we're able to talk about it. Rick, welcome, and thank you for sharing. Penny, welcome. I didn't see you until you said something. The reason that we're able to share this now is because, if you go back in time to 40 years ago, and people didn't really know all of the chakras for certain. 1938 was when we actually discovered the vibration in this in this octave of what is the term that Ra uses of the harvest in this section of the renewal since the last destruction of the human race, which was 75,000 years ago. So in this 75,000 year cycle, we're just rediscovering. And if you go back and look at 1938, before that, even Pythagorean theorem, Pythagoras, they thought they knew what 3, 6, and 9, the vibration and sound was. And in 1938, we discovered that they were missing 3 vibrations that we discovered, and it was actually 3, 6, and 9. So they had to shift everything at that point to fit 3, 6, and 9 in the center when they thought that they already knew what they were. In fact, they did not. Okay, so literally it took until 1938, and since then they readjusted the chakras in all the books, but they still were counting the red ray as one, because we were that's the base, because that's the beginning of this octave for us as a human condition, as a soul. And I just posted a reel, showing that with, I am, I think, I know, I feel, I know, for the chakras themselves and what they are, the yellow ray, which is what we're here in, is the I do chakra. And that's why in this reality, we do things, and it's physical. I do is physical. So we assume, and always have, that because we're arrogant, we always have been, that, creation started with us. So the first chakra has to be the number 1, because that was when we became sentient and we're aware. So therefore, that's the beginning of creation. And that's actually wrong. It's not. The beginning of creation happens 2 levels below that, because that's the first and the second dimension. Okay. So creation starts as a one-dimensional ideology, and we didn't discover that really until around the same time. 1938 was a huge banner year for the ascension of the human race, and it's still not getting any credit. Everyone says 2012 and 2015 and 2022, but nobody realizes 1938. And there was a lot of things that happened then. A lot of things that happened, positive and negative, in 1938. And people don't have any idea of what went on. And I'm putting some of that in my book to talk about that. Okay, so I'm going to press play now that I've been talking for 25 minutes almost. And let me know on the sound, and we'll go from here.
Group made one attempt to offer information to those of third density during that cycle. However, the information did not fall upon the ears of any who were concerned to follow this path to polarity. 20.30 Questioner: what technique did the Orion group use to give this information?
Right. I know Kari said Red Eye's making me look like I'm talking to myself because you were saying hi and talking and he wasn't responding. Right. Thank you, Penny. So it sounds good. Okay, so let's continue. He just asked the question.
Ra, I am Ra. The technique used was of 2 kinds. 1. The thought transfer, or what you may call telepathy. 2. The arrangement of certain stones in order to suggest strong influences of power, this being those of statues and of rock formations in your Pacific areas, as you now call them.
Okay, so this is the attempt in the past of the Orion Confederation to actually give information to people on a spiritual level or on a physical level for you to look at, that would then trigger you in some way. And that's why I posted the stuff that I did about all of the pyramids, again, showing the pyramidal complexes around the world and how that ties into a motherboard, and how the current positioning of the reflecting pool and where the Twin Towers were, that entire complex is in fact another mirror image of Orion, which is another portal. And those are all around the world. And I actually posted a video that shows that all the alignments around the world and how they're all similar. And those are just the ones that I have photos of currently, because there's some underwater that I haven't added to any of those photos yet. And I don't know anyone who has, but we know they're there. But because we don't have clear images to show, we just got the Dragon Triangle, the clear images of those pyramidal complexes down there. But we only have satellite imagery of the ones in the Bahamas, where the Bermuda, I should say, Bermuda Triangle is. We don't have those. No one's gone down there yet to actually film them underwater yet. So we'll get those eventually. All right, let's continue.
And to an extent in your Central American regions, as you now understand them. 20.31 Questioner, are you speaking in part of the Stoneheads of Easter Island? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 20.32 Questioner, how would such stoneheads influence a people to take the path of service to self? Ra, I am Ra. Picture, if you will, the entities living in such a way that their mind/body/spirit complexes are at what seems to be the mercy of forces which they cannot control.
Now, think about this. Okay, we know more about the Rapa Nui on Easter Island now than he did in 40 years ago, because he's saying eating heads. We know that they're entire statues. Some of them are buried, and some of them we don't know if they were above ground and then eventually, they eroded or because that happens. I actually watched when I was working. I actually saw a beer can outside of my job site. That 2 beer cans that somebody left on the ground, and instead of picking them up, I left them there. And over the 10 years that I worked there, I would go and check on them once a month or whenever I thought about it. And those cans slowly became buried in the ground because the ground was getting more and more and more dirt that you don't realize, because it was literally 100 feet from a freeway that was, people were driving on all the time, and you don't realize how much of that dust kicks up in the air and then settles. So they were literally being buried over time. And then there was also somebody had thrown some oil, plastic, bottles that you get oil to put in your vehicle, and those did the same thing, and it looked as if they were just sinking into the ground over time. I should have taken still images of it just so that I had that, but I did that as a scientific research to see how fast things would be buried. And they were, by the time I left working for that company, they were almost completely gone. Nobody even knew they were there. They're underground now. And I'm sure by now, because it's been 10 years since, so I'm sure they're completely underground unless somebody found them or they went to dig something up to plant a tree there or something. But that's just what happens over time. So now we know that there were full statues, but we also know that what it appears that Dawn didn't know, that I do, is that when the Europeans first got to that island, there was a group of people who seemed to be wearing lab coats. The description was modern day humans wearing lab coats that we would see, that were these overseers that were a lot taller than the people who lived there, and that there was this huge population of people living on Easter Island, like 30,000 people. And these caregivers were there. That's what they were told that these people were. And the caregivers seemed surprised that the Europeans were there, didn't want to have any conversation with them, didn't want to talk to them. In fact, were trying to hide from them. And then they left and they went about discovering South America and all of that, and came back about 4 months later. And the population was about 3,000 people. And the other people wearing lab coats were all gone. So that's really bizarre to think about there. However, Raw is saying that there was a concerted effort utilizing that information, of the statues, of some sort of power and control over the people. So it was a negative influence that these statues had. And everybody now are like, well, they're facing east, so it must be some beautiful religious thing. Because they always do that. If they want to say it's a religion, firstly, they always say everything was a religion. Even, I'm surprised they haven't said that the Roman Colosseum was just a religion. I think it's because we have the history written down that it wasn't, that it was actually a circus, because that's what it was called, and that it was designed to keep the people busy with the free circus and all kinds of debauchery and shops and sex and everything, so that they wouldn't see what the government was doing. Kind of sound familiar to you at all? And then they could, the Romans, the emperors that were in charge, could do what they were doing and steal all the money and away from the people and keep them as slaves. Sound familiar at all? And so, I mean, that's description of modern day society. And then, I just want to point out that the American government is based on Plato's book called The Republic, which is what Plato wrote from the Republic of the Roman Empire with a couple of changes to make it better. Just pointing out that our governmental systems that are Western European governmental systems around the world are all based on Plato's Republic, which is the way the Romans did things for about 2,500 years. And it seems to work. And then they kind of melded the Egyptian ideology, which was very similar. And it was all about funneling all the money into the rich and the elite. Does that sound familiar at all? I'm just stating fact and history that they don't want you to learn about, because they don't want you knowing that the history of the world, in a way, which is I'm putting in my book, that shows exactly what is actually going on this planet and what has been. Right. I've been told by psychics that it's supposed to be going to blow the lid off of humanity by many psychics who didn't even know what I don't still know what I've written about in my book, but they know that I'm writing a book, and they're told what the book is going to have an impact or what kind of impact it's going to have on the planet. We'll see if that comes to pass. I would like to think it does. Okay, let's continue.
Given a charged entity such as a statue or a rock formation charged with nothing but power, it is possible for the free will of those viewing this particular structure or formation to ascribe to this power over those things which cannot be controlled. This, then, has the potential for the further distortion to power over other selves. 20.33 Questioner: how were these stone heads constructed? Ra: I am Ra. These were constructed by thought after a scanning of the deep mind, the trunk of mind tree, looking at the images most likely to cause the experience of awe in the viewer.
Okay, and I stopped it there last time. I'm going to do it again. But yeah, Penny made the comment, haha, so true, history repeats itself. This entire condition is set up in a cyclical nature. The universe itself is cyclical. Cyclical means that everything is timed out, and everything has a pattern that is a spiral pattern that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, the alpha and the omega, which I just posted. It's in Croatian, so it's hard to read. I had to start translating it to get all of it 100%, but I was catching. So if you guys see the link on my Facebook page, it'll actually take you to a blog that somebody, and I don't know who wrote it yet, I'm still researching it, somebody put together a ton of information with images from around the world showing all the stuff that I talk about and what I'm putting in my book about the Orion connection and the religious connotations of what's going on. And so I'm still translating it because it's Croatian, which means that it's influenced by, I can understand some of it because it's Latin, Russian, Svenska, the Viking languages, Norwegian languages, which I'm currently learning. So I have a reference point, but then it's got a little bit of that Slovakian stuff that I'm not familiar with 100% from that same area. So but it is in the alphabet. It is the current Futhark alphabet that the English use, and everybody except for a few races use the eidetic alphabet. So it's easier for me to translate. But however, I seriously need to translate it, because whoever wrote this, I'm going to want to have a conversation with. Hopefully they understand English, or we have common languages. Since I'm learning 20 right now, I have most of the European languages except for those, Russian. I'm a little behind in. The Czech, I'm a little behind in. Polish, it's really difficult for me because of the eidetic alphabet. I have to learn that completely. However, I'm doing that with Chinese and Japanese, and learning their alphabets as well. I'm really good at sound and language. If I can just skip learning to read and write, I would be fluent in every language on this earth, but nothing teaches you that way. They all want you to learn how to read and write it, which I get. I'm all right with that, but that slows me down. So if I didn't have to learn how to read and write their language, I would pick it up so much faster because I'm so good at that. I have a knack for it, but you can't bypass it. And so I'm going to have to find some way. I'm sure there's ways of doing that where you don't have to actually learn how to spell. I can go back and do that later because I can converse quickly. Really good at that. Anyways, so my point of all of this is that this is the first person that I've seen, and I've never met this person, and they're typed it in Croatian from what I gather. When I went in and typed and put it into Google Translate, it told me that it was Croatian, and I'm going to have to verify that and vet it. But I want to talk to the author of this, or the researchers who researched this, because it's completely insanely groundbreaking, and no one in the Western world has translated it and put it out to the world. And I'm trying to get a hold of these guys because I want them to publish this, because it's insane. And I know that they're on to it. So whoever this person is very awake and obviously part of the coalition that we're working with, because they're embedded in a place where they have less control over, because they got this out there. And I was given this information in a way that I know was not by luck or happenstance, right? Right. Sorry, Denise. Thank you. She said, Leo, I'm in awe of you. What I wouldn't give just to have a little bit of your knowledge. I can't get enough. Well, this is literally Karen. Welcome, by the way. You should talk to Karen. Karen is insanely knowledgeable in the ways of the world and the universe in a way that I remember 5 or 7 years ago when I first met her. I thought, this woman is crazy. I can't believe that she's saying this stuff. And she's got to be on drugs. And then not too long after that, going down the rabbit holes to try and see what's going on, I was like, my God, Karen knows way more than most people. And she's not like out there publishing a book or talking to everyone about it, but she is, again, another person who knows this stuff that is not getting the coverage on the world. But however, to Denise, it literally has been my life's work. Okay. This is not a joke. Literally, my training started as a Merlin when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Not a joke. And it went until my father died when I was 19 years of age. And I got the Merlin title and was challenged by my father at a very young age to continue reading all religions. I was about 11 when he said, you need to read all of them, learn as much as you can about everything. And I already had that love of knowledge, that philosophy, because that word is a Greek word that means the love of knowledge, or the knowledge of love, which is a concept. It means both. And literally, some of us have that bug where we need to know. And I'm one of those people that I need to know everything. And so I've literally spent my entire life, every waking moment, I literally was charged by my father, your job is not who you are. Your job is what you must do to survive on this planet. Who you are is what you do when you're not at your job, and what you are thinking about when you are at your job. So I literally took that to heart in my entire life. I would do, and I'm still doing that. I'm going back to teaching now. I stayed away from that as long as I could, and the universe has pushed me to it. I'm literally going to start charging people to life coach, spiritual coach, everything. And I'm going to be doing the same with what I know. I'm writing the book. I'm putting it out there for people to read. I'm going to be traveling around. This is in the stars. It's been foretold for years. It's been foretold in this lifetime. Every person that I talk to that I know is going to be with me knows this about themselves, have been told this. We are going to be touring the world and teaching you guys to help you remember the things that you have forgotten or that you should know at this time period, at this progression in the human condition. The human condition on this earth should be about 1,000 years more advanced than we are currently, and easily hundreds of years. And that's happening exponentially. So don't feel bad, because you're getting there and you're getting it for free. Right? So right now, all of you guys are getting this for absolutely nothing. And you should take in what you can. And people are going to go back and listen to all my shows. Right now, people think I'm crazy, and that's okay. And eventually, people are going to be rushing to wherever they can hear my podcast on their phone or wherever to listen to my words and everything that I've said in the past. And they're going to go, wow, how did nobody know about this guy? I've done that with many teachers in my life where I've gone, how did I not know who this person is? And why is it that they've been teaching for 20 years and I've never found this out? And I go back, and I did that with Eckhart Tolle. I did that with a couple of the different Sufis, from one down there in Chile in the Set Yogi Institute, the Sat Yogi down there. I went back 15 years with him and listened to everything that he has published in teaching the Buddhist way. Literally learning this stuff and going, how did I not know about these people, and learning about them. So it's like, you do that and you move from place to place and you learn as much as you can from all of these religions. And that's what I've done my entire life. So it's not like people like, how do you know this stuff? I'm 56. I've been doing this since I was 5. Okay. So that's literally 51 years I have spent on this earth, in every ounce of my time, not physically having to work for someone else. And while there, thinking about and writing shit down on my breaks and reading books and studying. Literally, this is what I've done. The only time I did anything for the job was when I had to make sure I knew everything, or train or study or whatever. And when I got off work, I was off work and I was doing shit for me and for the world. So my point here, and this is why I'm doing life coaching and starting to charge people, because for me, everything that I thought was very simple, because I was taught all these techniques by my father. As I got older, I started realizing that people were paying a lot of money to know what my father was doing. My brother and I told this story many times. We're sitting back, 20, 30, 40 years ago, whenever it was that The Secret came out, and they had that entire series about that, and positive affirmation in your brain and rewiring yourself and getting rid of all the negative energy and putting in positive energy in your brain. I'm watching this with my brother, my younger brother, and he looks at me and says, dude, Dad was teaching us this our entire lives. I'm like, I know, right? So we took it for granted, thinking that everyone knew that. And that was when my father taught me, and it's a saying they use in retail, or around the world now, but most people don't know it, is when someone says that guy has no common sense. The truth about common sense is that it's only common if everyone has it. Okay. So the truth is, it shouldn't be called common sense because 80% of the population doesn't have it. So it's only common when everyone has it. Okay. Like gold is common. They tell you gold is rare and precious, but everyone that I know has it, or you have access to it readily. You can walk down the street, go to a mall, and you're going to find 5 shops that sell gold. Same thing with diamonds. So everything is backwards. Diamonds are common because everyone has them. There's 47 commercials on television every hour. There's usually 100, because there's one on every channel, 100 commercials per minute on television around the world about diamonds and gold. That's how rare that stuff is. It's so rare they can't get enough of selling it. They're trying to sell it to the world. They can't get rid of it fast enough. Okay, so that's how much we have of something they claim is no one has, but they call sense, common sense, and not everybody has that. That should be called rare sense. They have rare sense, because then if somebody doesn't have it, you can go, well, it is rare. But see, but that's not how it works. Okay, so knowledge is the same. My point about all of this is knowledge is the same. If you look for it, you will find knowledge. But however, and because of, and like Lao Tzu said, he who looks for it won't find it. He who tries to grasp it will not reach it. And that's because what he was referring to there, and what we all are referring to, is the reason they were chasing El Dorado, the reason they were chasing the land of milk and honey, looking for this place, physical, where it's this land that flows with milk and honey. And the truth is, the land of milk and honey is in your brain. It's in your body. It's part of your soul, and it's part of your chakra system, your endocrine system, your tree of life that is internal and external to you, which is in everything in the entire universe. That's what we're all talking about right here. So literally going into our tree of life at the 0 point and extracting out from that what the human psyche needs to then tantalize the human psyche in a way that would help them ascend is what they did for the pyramidal complexes around this earth and other structures, Stonehenge, Sacsayhuaman, up there by Lake Titicaca, and all these other structures around the world that we look at just like, I just had it in my head and I can't think, Angkor Wat and a few other places where all of the pyramids, of course, that goes without saying, all the pyramidal complexes around the world, all of these things were designed so that they would activate in the human beings, in the human condition, 5 to 12 to 24,000 years ago, something that was kept from them by people who usurped that information, stole it away to not allow people to have access to it. And that is what part of what has happened here. These things, your structures are still there, even though they've been corrupted, turned off, attempted to be destroyed by the people on this earth for the last 25,000 years and further back. When you guys are ready for it, you'll explore that as a human species, as a condition, and realize how far back that goes. And that is going to happen in the future. But right now, we can only tell you what it is that the average person is ready for. So we're expanding everybody's consciousness as much as we can so that we can give you more information. And it sounds crazy to a lot of people until it doesn't. Okay. Well, yeah, Kari says, have Leo tried, and yes, I have. I've tried to give you information that they'll stifle us. It's the way the universe works. When you can't give out a certain information, whether you know it or not, it's just like a psychic trying to give you a reading. When we get to a point where something you have to discover on your own and you're not ready for it, literally doing a psychic reading, for those of you who saw the last psychic reading a couple of times ago now, last week or the week before, 2 weeks ago now, with Jamie Watson Wolf, my father came through, and because I had asked questions about I didn't ask any questions, and that one was whatever they have to say. But my father brought up the mission of the coalition, and when she asked her for more information, he said, "We can't talk about that." And she laughed and said, "He said we can't talk about the mission here." But the next week, when I asked the questions about the mission and timelines, they were able to then give her more information a week later about that, right? Denise says, "Yeah, I remember that." So depending on what people are ready to understand or open, and depending on who's in the audience listening at that particular moment, but it also reflects how one's going to hear it around the world. So the information, some of it we can't tell you, some of it we hold back on purpose. I literally haven't even discussed 100% what I've read in the scrolls and all of these prophecies that have been locked away, quote unquote, for people in the future to get, but I can read them. So that's going to be something I'm going to be talking about in the future. But currently, I can't divulge some of the information because I know that it's pertinent to and will be utilized as a weapon by the population of people that already are in the know. They just don't know what they say, and they're waiting for someone like me to translate them so they can jump on it and use it as a weapon. And that is what they want to do to bring about Ragnarok, the Kali Yuga, the Revelations, the end times, where they are trying to gain control of that narrative, continue to have control of that narrative, to keep everybody and in some way enslave everybody again by killing them off, by trying to murder 3/4 of the population of this earth so that everybody starts over and they lose this knowledge. That's truly what they've done over and over. Okay. So literally you have to realize that right now, well, they're trying to keep all of us, right? We already know what we just don't remember, right? Yes. Kari said we already know what we just don't remember. I asked her if hypnosis would help us to remember. Some people, yes. If you get into your higher self from in the hypnotic state, if you can access that point where you're accessing the Akashic records or your higher self, you will get that information. But you have to be able to you have to ascend enough to be able to reach that level of a meditation or somebody hypnotizing you. You have to do the work and be there. Okay, so you literally can't just have somebody who's asleep and doesn't even believe in a higher self be go into a trance and then all of a sudden talk to that. You have to have those abilities. So if somebody has those abilities unlocked, even if they don't believe in that, some people I know are channels and they don't even believe in spirituality, but they believe in ghosts, and they channel people all the time that are high spiritual beings. Like I literally witnessed somebody channeling the Holy Mary, who recognized me and was the only person in the room that she actually had a conversation with without questions being asked to her. And it freaked everybody out. Even my wife at the time was like, "Do you know her?" And I'm like, "No, I don't," because she was really pretty, the woman who was channeling her, and truthfully my type. But I had never met this woman before, and she knew me and saw my eyes, and I knew her eyes, but not before. When she came out as herself, before she went into the trance, I never saw her before, but her eyes changed. There was another being in there looking at me from inside, and that was supposed to be Mary, Jesus's mother. And she recognized me, and I recognized her, and she got up and came over and actually touched me, shook my hand, and talked to me, while her handlers were freaking out because she was actually having physical contact and they didn't know what to do. But she waved them off and wouldn't let them stop her. And we had a conversation that everyone heard. And then she went over and sat down, and I sat back down, and everybody in the room was like, "What the hell? How do you know her?" And some people thought it was a trick, that I was a plant. And my wife was like, "No, I swear to you, we're not." And I don't understand. She was kind of mad. "Do you know this woman?" Thinking maybe I had an affair or something with this girl or an ex-girlfriend or something that I was not telling her about. I said, "I have never seen this woman before in my life." However, the person that was in there now as Mary Magdalene, or as Holy Mary, sorry, so it was Mary, Joseph's wife. What was their last name? I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know her. I've seen her, and she had seen me, and we hadn't seen each other for a few lifetimes, apparently. And even she had said that. It's been a while since our eyes have met on this earth. And, it wasn't like I'm not trying to say, "Oh, she was trying to say that I was Jesus or the Savior." I'm not in any way. That was not in any way what I gathered from that. But we know each other. We've worked together. And we go back. So I don't believe I was Jesus. So don't get that in your head. Someone's going to go, "Oh, he's trying to lead it up to he's Jesus return." Not even hardly. Jesus was someone who sacrificed himself so that everybody would get the point of his involvement here. And that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to win a war, not be the martyr in it. That's not how I work. I'm not that crazy. And the people think I'm crazy coming down here and doing what I'm doing. Right. So to some I'm crazy, and to others I'm not. That's the Druid way, where Merlin, that's a famous Merlin line where Merlin was communicating with Arturius, in a dream. And he said, "Merlin, are you a dream? Is this just a dream?" And he said, "I am a dream to some and a nightmare to others." And then lightning struck and exploded around them. And then he disappeared and went off to talk to somebody else. But so I tell people that way I'm absolutely insane to some people, but I'm brilliant to others. And it's the same. I'm a dream to some and a nightmare to others. Okay, so yes, Kari says ancient souls recognize one another from long ago, love, healing, things like that. Absolutely. So we have worked together. The soul that is Mary's mother, who came to this earth to play that part, to give birth to Jesus and to raise him and protect him until he was able to do that on his own, and then move forward to do what he was doing. That soul and mine have met either then, before then, after then, or in many lifetimes. We have met, and we're working in the same circles to do the same thing. That is to say that everyone on this planet who is working at that goal has in some way been affected by that energy and probably met. There's a lot of people that I know that say, "I have memories of Jesus and his crucifixion and resurrection," as if they were there. And I don't question that. However, I do try to teach that all of that information is there for all of us, because the truth is we are all those people at a higher level. So we have access to the Akashic records. So sometimes we tap in, because I remember when I was younger, I knew 7 men that are still alive on this planet, as far as I know, who all claim that they were, in fact, King Arthur. And I was like, how is that possible that 7 people believe that they are the soul who was in the body as Arturius at that time? How is that possible? And that now I realize it is actually possible, but it's also just as possible that they are accessing that memory and that soul. And when you do, you become that. So the truth is, all of that is there for all of us to access, because the absolute truth is, and I keep trying to show this in all my reels, and I talk about it in my book. The truth is, all of this, everything that you think is real, is in fact a daydream that we, us as one, are currently having, because we are in the mind, our own mind of the creator, because we are the creator. And all of this is an illusion that we've created, pretending so that we could randomly have all of these experiences, because we don't have the experience of life and death and the memory of it. So whether we're in the womb of some higher being, or just in the mind of that child in the womb, and we've never experienced that, and we're already aware and sentient, or if we're some old dude sitting under a tree somewhere having a daydream and imagining all of this, and able to, because we're so intelligent and so advanced that we're able to think of trillions and trillions of things all at once, is inconsequential to the fact that it's actually happening. Okay. So everyone, that's hard for people to expand their consciousness around. That's part of, I remember the first time I expanded my consciousness and blew my own mind. And people do this. You guys all have this ability. Once you start actually grasping infinity and the infinite vastness of the universe itself, when your brain explodes of consciousness out in that manner, to realizing that when it does that and it expands outward, there is no ending, and a part of you is still expanding outward, that is the day that you actually are tapping into the realization of the creation itself. And there's a part of you that never stops. It's always out there expanding further and further and further, because that's exactly what the creator of the universe has done and is doing. Okay. So I know I'm pulling you guys really high up this week. And I'm doing this on purpose to look at the moon cycle and the solar cycle of what's happening right now. We're what are we, 2 days away from the solstice, from midsummer, right? I don't know exactly the date. Today's the 21st. I think it's the 25th. I don't have anything planned, but I'm going to be doing something. So I am pulling everybody up in a very ferocious way. Right? Right? Kari says, been busy so many Fridays. I hopped out. I hoped at a chance when I would see Major Tom. I love that you guys call me that. That's so hilarious. But yeah, I'm glad, Kari, that you were able to be here for to take part in this week, because you are a very busy person, and I'm thinking about changing the day. At this point, I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I want to add more. Once I put my mother into a home, I'll have complete carte blanche. Right now, my life revolves around her. Once she goes into a home, I will be able to do a show a day if I want to. Right now, I can't currently do that. I could probably, if I did it earlier, if I did it like noon or 1 or so, I could probably do a many, but it cuts into really paying attention to her and taking care of her. So once that becomes an issue to where she needs to go in a home, you'll see a completely different Leo. However, I'm already going to start ramping things up because it just needs to be done. Okay, so let's get back to Raw. But my point here is that Raw is explaining, and this is why I went into all these details and then yanked you guys to a high level, as high as I could pull you. And some of you obviously probably tuned out. That happens every time I pull people up. People go, all right, I'm out of here. He's talking about either you guys always think I'm the enemy, and your ego gets involved and you go, he's talking politics, I'm out of here. He's my enemy, because you're stuck in that vibration to where they have you believing that everyone is your enemy in some way, and you're just waiting to be triggered, because that's what they program everyone to do, waiting to trigger, right? Right? Kari says, I'm just a piece of the current's soul journey to expand their knowledge in this lifetime heck if I know where they come from, where that came from, right? Because that is the truth, is that is a part of you, and as a being in service to others, that's like your nightly creed. And I don't mean Night, I mean Knight. Creed, as a person that is in service to others and ultimately has volunteered to be here to do what you're doing, that is something that is a part of your being. So when you profess that the way you did, that comes from the soul, comes from the heart, right? So that's literally why you're here. Right. That's what happens in a person who's true to themselves about why they're here. Sometimes blurt those things out. It's just like when I hear somebody, a telltale, I hear someone say, I'm here doing this. I have a podcast, and I don't care if I get 3 people live. If I get 1, 2, or 3 people, I'm doing my job, because if I can change one person's life, then I'm doing my job. The second I hear someone say that, they're not in service to self. They're not about clicks. They're not about how many people are live. They're not about trying to make money. They're about a message, and they're about delivering people to a higher consciousness. And they don't care. We do this, and people are all the time go, why are you online? You have 3 to 5 people there. What the hell do you think you're doing? You're never going to get rich doing that. Well, if motivation, money, and being rich was my motivation, you're absolutely right. What I'm doing is absolutely wrong, and will only serve to those people who are about themselves and enriching themselves and making money as what not to do. People go, well, you got a niche because you have people that show up, and I'm like, those are the people that I'm helping, and eventually those people are going to help other people, and some of them do that. As they help them, they're helping people, and they're also helping me, because they force me to be a better me and to consider things that you guys say that makes me think of other things that I wasn't thinking. So it's a trade of energy that I literally give you knowledge, and you guys give me knowledge. It's the learn, teach, teach, learn. I don't assume that I know everything, because if I did, I would be ego. And anyone who ever says, I don't have to learn anything, you guys just need to hear what I have to say, they're about money, and they're about ego, and they are ego. Right? I know. Yeah. Rick's like, where? What? Rick, you got to stay here long enough to hear the paragraph, buddy. If you're out and in and out and in, you're going to get confused. Okay. But if you do have an actual question besides where, because that's a very broad brush. Where? What? Where are you? Where am I? Where are we? What? You know what I mean? Right, that happens sometimes, bro. When we just, you haven't left. You're just, oh, look, a butterfly. That's what I call that. We get like that sometimes. You just have to ground and focus, bro. But I get like that too, to where you start going down rabbit holes, and you're just out. But I was also, Rick, in your defense, I was pulling everybody in a very high way. So a lot of what I was saying, it might have sounded a little weird to you. And sometimes I've literally had people ask whether I was still speaking English or not. Okay. And if you see Jacqueline and I, when we actually get going, we try not to when we're live, but sometimes we do. And if you guys heard our conversations off of air, people have literally said that about us when we talk. I have no idea what they're talking about. People in a high level in a conversation where we're literally on a conference call, literally her and I would get talking, and out of 10 people in the room, maybe 1 or 2 was actually going, I actually get what they're saying. Everyone else was like, what are they talking about? You guys that's crazy. Are you actually, what language is that? So literally people who are counting themselves as awake, or literally sometimes when we pull people to a very high level, and Jacqueline does that with me. She pulls me up to sometimes where I have to think, wait a minute, what is she saying? I have to focus and realize and pull myself up to a high level. And she literally calls me sometimes and said, I need you to talk to somebody that I know actually will understand what I'm saying. And that's the truth. Our conversations, a lot of people at a high level is a very small group, because for when we get to a high level, it becomes hard for people to understand. So it's just not difficult or unlikely that something of what I say might confuse people or sound crazy to them. All right, let's continue.
20.34 Questioner. Well, then, did Orion entities do this themselves? Did they land in physical, or did they do it from mental planes, or did they use one of the incarnate entities to construct these by thought? Ra, I am Ra. Nearly all of these structures and formations were constructed at a distance by thought. A very few were created in later times in imitation of original constructs by entities upon your Earth plane/density. 20.35 Questioner. What density Orion entity did the creation of these heads? Ra, I am Ra. The fourth density, the density of love or understanding, was the density of the particular entity which offered this possibility to those of your first major cycle. 20.36 Questioner.
Right. Sorry, Rick. Sometimes the lost in translation because of slang terms. Sometimes that I try to stay away from that. However, sometimes you just say things, right? Sometimes we do. Now, I didn't say that. Obviously, Denise did. But yeah, no, there's a lot of, that's just like, over here, annoying female women, we call them a Karen. And I know you guys use a different word like Jan or something. The Europeans use a different term as well. They don't say Karen. That's just, lost in translation. I mean, that's just the different things that people say culturally. I know that you're in Australia, and I know for a long time you guys called women, a Sheila. We don't call them that in America. We would call that the same term would be, a chick. We have a few terms for that. You know what I mean? But if you said Sheila to an American, they wouldn't know what you're saying. Just like, over in Europe or especially in the UK, they would say telly instead of a telephone, or, and then when you talk to people who are in Europe above that, in Northern Europe, telly means television. In Spanish and Portuguese, it means television, not a phone. So the English also have the word blower. Or horn. We say horn, or get on the horn and talk to somebody, because it used to be shaped like a horn here in America back in the 20s and 30s when the phones first came out. The thing you put up to your ear looked like a horn that you would put up to your ear. So they would say, get on the horn or the blower, right? So that sometimes happens. People I love that when that cultural things happen, especially when they're funny, when somebody takes something the wrong way or they don't get it. And just like this one English girl was here, and they were talking about reading, a psychic reading, and she was European from England, from the UK, and she said, "Are you doing me right now? Are you doing me right now?" Well, that's a term that means, "Are you reading me?" Or are you, over there, but over here, that is a sexual term. Right? Are you doing me means are you having sex or fantasizing about that? And so everybody laughed. And she was on a late show, and she was like, "What?" And they had to explain it to her, and she blushed and got red. So there's a lot of stuff like that happens. But yeah, no, that's funny that you brought that up. I just had to point that out. Okay, so literally, let's continue with what we're talking about here, getting back to Raw. But however, to cover that and bring it back in full circle, those things are the reason why when people are translating things, you have to write. Penny says a cigarette is known as a fag. Over in the UK, it's a fag. Over here, a fag is a derogatory term that was used in the 60s and 70s to depict a person who was, in fact, gay. Was called fag. And over there, it's a cigarette. So people over there would say, "I'm going to have a fag." And over here, they get all offended. What the hell is he talking about? He's going to have a gay guy? Right. So, so it's sometimes these words that we use are lost in translation. I've talked about that before, and that makes it difficult. And I'll explain that some typical terms, but it makes it difficult when someone's trying to translate what someone was saying from thousands of years ago by trying to translate the word for word and not what the word meant. And so that becomes an issue in translation, and people get things wrong because they don't understand or understand the context of the words. And here's for instance, and I've said this many times, literally there was a band called Roxette here in America, which means female Roxette, right? Because there was a female lead singer and lead guitarist who was very talented. And I think she was the singer as well. And it was her band that she put together. It was called Roxette. And they went to Japan, and to tour in Japan, they had to change their name to Rocket, because the word Roxette in Japanese means diarrhea. Doesn't mean female rocket. means diarrhea. So they had to change their name while they were in Japan, and the title of their album, all of their records and everything that they would sell there to this day is under the band name Rocket, not Roxette, because otherwise they'd be calling themselves Diarrhea. Right. And then Chevrolet here in the United States in the 60s and 70s, late 60s and mid 70s, had a vehicle called the Nova. Right. That is from a supernova, a very powerful sun that is exploding, a nova. Well, in the Latin languages, especially in South America, Central America, Mexican, Spanish, Castilian, nova is two words, no va, which means doesn't go. No go, right? No va. Va means go, and no is no. No va is the word. So the car wouldn't sell under the name doesn't go. Shitty car. This is it here. I'm going to go and buy my Chevrolet. If you were Chinese or Japanese, you can't say Chevrolet. I'm going to buy my Chevrolet, which you should look up that word and see what it means. No va, no go, right? So that is the reason that you have to learn a language by learning what the cultural differences are, is my point. This is why I take the time. In my book, I break down words for you that you don't realize they're utilizing, like, for instance, what they're saying now is equity. And they're telling you that is, in fact, I talked about that last week, that is, in fact, what is equality is actually equity is more equal than equality. And they show you this visual that only works if you are evil and in service to self and greedy. That's the only way it works. So it makes sense to them. It makes complete 100% sense, but they have to sell this to everyone else. They show you a visual. I didn't get it again this week, but the visual is that there's three people standing outside of a baseball park trying to look over the fence at a baseball game or some event. And it's usually a baseball game in this country when they do this. And there's three people. It's an adult male, a boy of about 11, and a boy about 6. And because the two boys are too short, they can't see over the fence. So they show you equality means all three of them get a box to stand on, a wooden crate to stand on to look over the fence. But in doing so, the man who can look over the fence without on the crate, he's now above the fence by 2.5 feet and can look over. The boy who's 11 standing on the crate can now just see over the fence, but the kid who's 6 years old, even on a crate, can't see over the fence. And they're saying, well, that's equality. Equality means everyone gets all the exact same thing. But equity, and this is where they're saying that equity, they would control you, says that the guy who can look over the fence needs to give his box to the little boy to look over the fence. And that's what equity means, that they are deciding what should be. So they're going to take the box from the guy because he doesn't need it and give it to the kid. Now, that only works if you're self-serving and you don't want to give up your own fucking box and you're looking at the kid, pardon my American, and you're like, too bad, kid, your ass out, whether they know each other or not. The right thing for that adult, if he is an adult, would be to give the kid the box or put the kid on his shoulders to be able to see the game. And it wouldn't matter whether he knows the kid or not. If you don't know the kid, you don't put him on your shoulders because the parents might be going, what are you going to do? Try and take my kid and run away and have sex with him? But you give him the box because it's the right thing to do. So if you're in service to others, equality, you would already be doing the right thing and wanting to volunteer to give up your box for that other kid to make sure he can see over the fence because you don't need it. And that's the right thing to do. But that's not what they're selling you. They're selling you that people won't do the right thing and they need someone to control them, to take the box from them and give it to the other kid so he can see over the fence. And that's true equality. And that's what equity is. And that's so literally they tell you equality is good, but it only means everybody gets anything of the same. And equity is giving the box to this other kid so that he can see over the fence too. So what they're saying is that you don't have the common sense to help that child. Some people don't. And that's only 14% of the population. And they are in fact in service to self. So the people who invented that analogy, that makes sense to them because they're like, hey, look, we need to help. We need to be in control of you, first of all, because you're too stupid to do the right thing and you won't because you're evil. And they're selling you on the idea that you're in fact evil and have to have a controlling body to make you get off of that fucking box and give it to the kid, because you wouldn't do that on your own. The truth is that's only 14% of the population, but it makes complete sense to them because they're evil and in service to self. And the entire thing is a distraction to take control of you. And that is exactly the analogy that Ra is talking about here. And it is exactly the analogy of what they've been doing, distracting you with, well, equality means you both get the same box, but, 99% of all men wouldn't give the box to that kid. They would laugh at him and say, hey, grow bigger, dumbass. Ha, you'll get to watch the game when you're old enough. Perpetuating evil, perpetuating being in service to self to the next generation. And that's what they're trying to do. But we'll be the ones who are righteous and be in control and take the box from that guy and give it to the kid so he can see over, instead of making a permanent platform there that anyone could stand on to see over, or lowering the fence, or not having a wooden fence, but in fact putting up chain link so that everyone could just stand there and watch the game for free. No, because they're evil and they want to charge for it. So you're cheating to begin with, and you're not paying for the game, which is taking money out of their pocket. However, don't ask that question, because you see that's what they're getting money and control over you. They don't want to give you the free access to watch the game for free because they're making money off of that. They don't want you to even notice that. They want you to only notice the box and the paradigm of, we have to tell you to give the box up. Meanwhile, they're charging people and putting a fence up so that you can't see it unless you pay them money. So the truth is, the entire scenario, even that one, is hiding the fact, but putting it right in front of your eyes, that they're actually, all of this is costing you money that you have to pay to them to enrich them. And they're trying to get you to believe that you need them also to be in control of you, to make you do something to help some kid cheat and will look over the fence, but you still don't get access to the game unless you pay them for it. And how do you think they're going to get that box? You're going to have to pay taxes so that the kid will have a box. But all of the control goes to them. So all the money goes up to them, to the top of the pyramid, from all angles, and they control you and the money and how you can, if you can, when you can, see over the fence. Do you see? Right? Kari says that's too easy to do, a chain fence. And yes, I agree. See my point? So the truth is, if it was really up about equality or equity, they would break that fence down and just let anybody walk in. That's what the Romans did. There was no fences. There was just, everybody had free access. The circus in Rome was free. They didn't charge money to get in. So the truth is, if they weren't more evil than the Roman Empire at the time, they would have free access to all games. But then you would have to pay what for other things, for food and all that. Nope. They're charging you for everything. Surprised they don't charge you for the air you breathe. They charge you for water. They charge you, and then they tried to charge people to go to the bathroom. But that got, in this country, there was a time, I remember when I was a kid, when you had to pay money to get into a toilet. And then somebody sued and said that's a basic need. And they made a law here that said that you couldn't. But they used to charge you also for your phone call. You couldn't call anybody, but then you had to be able to dial 911. So then they took out all the phone booths from most of the country, right? As soon as cell phones came in, they were like, well, we need to get rid of these phone booths because now that's still something that's for free. People were also learning how to call on for free. On the cell phones, right? Because on the house phones, I was able to do that. I figured out, I was taught how to go in and literally get the phone to think you put money in it, and let you call. So people like me were learning that stuff, and it was making those phones obsolete, so they couldn't do it anymore, right? Do you see my point? So everything is a distraction to keep you from seeing that they're funneling all money and control to themselves by keeping you fighting about and with each other for everything. And that's what Ra's talking about them doing right here. Let's continue. I know that was a long discussion for that, but that's literally what Ra is warning about and saying this is what they did in the past and how they did it. Okay. And then people also that are in service to Others were also building these monuments and things to do good things. And that's what they're trying to keep people from finding now. That's why if you go to the pyramids and ask the people and the curators in charge of the pyramids, what were these for? They weren't built by aliens, man. They're fucking pissed off about that. Literally, I just posted a thing from Tucker Carlson where he talked about that in front of a crowd and said there are certain things in history that they go crazy angry over. Those are the things that you're asking the right questions. That's why I always tell people the second you get popular enough to have someone threaten your life online, you're doing the right thing. The second you start getting censored for what you say is because you're saying the right things and they're deleting you. The second that you have somebody hating on you, haters got to hate. Why is it that they hate you? Because they're jealous of you in some way. Or you're talking about something that goes against the narrative they're trying to keep for the people. So if you're saying about world history and pointing out things like the pyramids are in fact something different than some sort of burial mound for a king, the people who are making $100 billion a year off the tourist industry are going to tell you, shut up. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It wasn't built by aliens. It was for this goddamn king that we're telling you about, because they're charging, and the most money that Egypt makes, their entire gross domestic product that they make that keeps that country afloat comes from the tourist industry and people coming to see one of the seven wonders of the world and buying what they're selling to the people about that item, whether it's true or not. That's what they make their money off of. Okay. So the same thing goes around the world. That's why they hide that. Why is it that there's a pyramidal complex that they make money in Egypt over, but the Chinese have a similar, identical pyramidal complex in China that is untouched and not damaged like the one in Egypt, but they're not letting the world know about it, and they're not bringing tourists from around the world to see it. Why? Why are they not wanting the world to know about it? But they're not. There's also a pyramidal complex in the United States of America that looks just like that is buried underground. I lived in Arizona where one of them is, and they will not allow anyone to go up there and unbury it. There's another one in Central America that they're not letting you know about. There's another one in over on Antarctica that there's a picture of from the sky that I posted in my reel yesterday that has no description. When you look at it, you're going to see all the different ones, and you're going to see the snow, a topical image from the snow without any words. Why? If I would have put the words on there, I would get deleted because no one wants you to know it. But I'm telling you, people, that if you watch my reel or my short or whatever on any platform that I'm up there, you're going to see images of pyramidal complexes around the world in several different photos. And one of those photos to the far right of your screen is going to have a topical picture from the sky of a 3-pyramid complex in the snow, and the peaks of those pyramids and the shapes of those pyramids are now uncovered, and you will be able to see that, but there is no description of it. That is from Antarctica. I'm telling you that right now. But if those words were on that screen, the algorithm would already have me in jail on all platforms. Google would be deplatforming me. Meta would be deplatforming me. I'm no longer on TikTok because I won't agree that I won't ever sue them to the agreement, but I might go back there just to get words out. But they would also deplatform me. Okay, so there's no words there, so the algorithm doesn't notice images because they're not looking for it, and they'll get too obsessed with all the other images, which are already things that are out there that everybody knows about as it stands, so I can get away with it. But that's why if you look at that reel of mine, you're going to see that picture, and it's not going to have any description of what it is. Why? Because that description alone, those words saying pyramidal complex of Antarctica, would get me taken off the air. Okay, so I had to get around the algorithms. But I'm telling you guys, because if you want to go and see the actual photo of the pyramidal complex that looks just like all the others, that is exactly in the shape of Orion's belt, it lined up exactly. There's a photo that is taken at the same exact north-south, or it's actually east-west, at a little bit of an angle, east-west but it's facing like up and down. So it looks north-south, but the truth is on our Earth, it's actually east-west facing because they're all facing the exact same directions, by the way. Just like the pyramidal complex in Giza, they're all in that same direction. None of them are going north-south. They're all going east-west, and they're all along the exact same line. In fact, the three big ones, Mexico over there in Egypt, and then one over in the Middle East, those three are the exact same distance away, and they're the exact same shape as the Orion's belt on that side of the planet, topically. And there's a picture of that. Okay. So not only do the pyramidal complexes make up the three alignment of the three lights of the Orion constellation, the belt of Orion, but these big, huge complexes from South America, Egypt, and China are exactly at the exact same distance if you pulled back topically in the exact same shape, east to west, on this side of the planet or on that side of the planet, which is this side of the planet that I'm on and you're on because you're in Australia. On that side of the planet that goes exactly the same distance, and they're exactly in the same shape, and they exactly mirror Orion as well, but only on a global scale. Okay. What does all that have to do with anything? This is what Ra is talking about right now. All of these things, and I'm just centering on pyramidal complexes, not to mention like Stonehenge and these other henges. There's a couple of them in England, these other places around the world that are Angkor Wat, and other places that are not, that are step pyramids that are also the same. And then there's other structures all over the world that are these serpent mounds and serpentine god, serpent god information that was trying to be hidden by these people when they got here, the Orion Crusaders, when they got here and changed the narrative. You guys know them as the Anunnaki. Okay, let's continue.
You use the same nomenclature for fourth density negative as for fourth density positive. Both are called the dimension of love or understanding. Is this?
Yeah, Rick, it is a clock. Rick says, guys, he says, I was reading the Stonehenge was a clock and a calendar. Yes, it is, in fact, just like the Mayan and Incan calendar of the big round and little round. It's an observatory. It always has been. It's a timepiece, and probably more. Yes, Kari. Kari said, and probably more. It is. So it's not only is it a timepiece, a clock, a calendar, that it's also tells and monitors all of the stars and their formations and where they are, how the alignments are, and there's different places that you stand that you can observe different times of the year. Just like if you look at the step pyramidal complex of Quetzalcoatl, every single day it's a timepiece. Literally, the step pyramid, if you watch it, the shadow of the pyramid tells the time of the day. All you have to do is go, what time is it? I don't know. And just look over at the step pyramidal complex, and you'll see the snake serpent slithering up and down the corner of that building. It tells you 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Not a joke. Okay. It goes up in the morning. When the sun comes up, it goes down. It goes up, down, and back up. So when the sun comes up in the morning, the shadow starts at the top and goes down to the base. And then all of a sudden, as the sun goes over to the top on the other side, it shifts and it moves away. And as the sun is moving down, the shadow moves up as it gets dark until the sun goes down and the light is at the top. And that's literally telling you 12 hours of a day. Right? So not only is that building a clock that told the time like Big Ben for the entire world, anybody who needed to know what time it was, all they'd have to do was look over at the pyramid and see where the shadow is. And it told you the time of day. Okay, and we know that for a fact that you can take a stick and stick it in the ground and tell time by that. That was the old timepieces that until we made digital or a analog clocks, like when they made the one from the Antikythera mechanism, because of the island that it was found sank by the Antikythera, the island. That's why it's called that, by the way. People don't know that. That mechanism was a timepiece. It was a calendar. It was exactly the same. But it was a sextant as well. That was designed for seafaring people. And it was a sextant that actually told you how to calculate where you were in the ocean during the day. So that, and so you wouldn't have to stand on the starboard side and because you couldn't see the stars during the day. So you had to have other things to help you. And when they made these devices, that one when it sank with somebody or fell overboard in a storm. No one knows how it got there, but it was down there, and they found it, and they call it the Antikythera mechanism. Right? 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock rock. I know, right? 1, 2, 3 o'clock. Yeah. 12 o'clock rock, right? Something to get into my mind, right? Of all the serpents. But that, right? That's a good song. That's a song at will. 1 o'clock, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock rock. Oh, now you got me singing it, right? 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock rock. We're going to rock around the clock. When the clock strikes 2 and 3 and 4. And yeah, that's a song from the 50s here in the United States. And then they used that for Happy Days, the television show that was in the late 60s, early 70s in the United States. That was the theme song for that. And now it's in my head. Thank you, Kari. I'll be singing it in my sleep tonight. Okay, but the point is, and those jingles are also an example. They'd use that against us on the jingles on television and commercials. They know that the harmonics of certain things will get into our heads and play reverb over and over and over. So too did the people in service to self know this thing to be true and utilize this information, and are to this day in the Druid fashion or religion, we call them bards. Those are people that understand how the harmonics and harmonic resonance of words and music coalescing together can change and expand someone's consciousness. To this day, these people that if you look back in history, they don't know it, they don't remember it, but I can see it, and some of us can. You look at some of these people that are alive today that are musicians. They've been musicians in almost every life that they've had, and sometimes they're a rock star now, and they were a rock star in the 1500s, and a rock star in the 1300s, and they were somebody who created an instrument that is still on this planet 4,000 years ago. They have been coming here and doing the same thing with that skill set over and over, lifetime over lifetime. And people don't realize they're the same soul doing it all over the world. And so some of these people that you think are these rock stars from old were individuals that are gone forever. Some of them have repetitively done this, and like 10 of them are the one soul that has had 10 different lifetimes. The same thing goes for other things as well, mathematicians and prophets and priests and religious figures. A lot of that you don't realize that they come back every lifetime and do the same thing in some aspect. Sometimes they're not like, Jesus came, but we know that Jesus, that caricature, was here 12 times. 12 different times. I can point them out to you. I think I named a few or 6 or 7 of them in my book. Or I'm going to in the next one. I don't remember. Sometimes I get confused. I was doing that last night. I'm drawing up because I'm going to start teaching and selling my wares and charging people money for the stuff that I've been giving for free for a long time, because now I'm going to need to go back to work, and I don't want to go back to work for someone else. So I'm going to start doing it for myself so that I can pay for my way on this earth and not have to be reliant on the government or whatever. So in doing so, I'm going to have to start charging people for what I do, which a lot of you that have gotten this stuff for free, you're going to be loving that. Yeah, earworm, laugh out loud and you're welcome, Kari says to my, talking about that song. No, you're right. And that's the harmonics and the harmonic resonance of that song, whoever wrote it. It sticks in your head, and it was a ditty. That's what we call that here in America, a ditty. That gets in. That means it gets into your head. The repetition of the sound gets into your head, and it plays out over and over. And they try to design things to do that. We also do that on the other side, and but not forcibly, but do the same thing. All right, let's continue.
Correct. Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Love and understanding, whether it be of self or of self towards other self, is one. 20.37 Questioner. Now, what was the approximate date in years past of the construction of these heads? Ra, I am Ra. This approximately was 60,000 of your years in the past time/space of your continuum.
So that would suggest, now we're talking about the Rapa Nui again, and the Easter Island heads, 60,000 years ago, they were above ground. And over the course of 60,000 years, the Earth has built up enough because of sediment happening from space, floating around the world in the air from sandstorms. That stuff happens, right? And if you're not aware of that, you should be. Literally, they just said that there was a sandstorm that happened in northern Africa, eastern Africa, 2 weeks ago that was coming and depositing sand here in the United States. And if you're in the United States, especially on the East Coast, you know about the fires in Canada, which were raining down all the smoke all across the United States, going south almost to Florida, would show you that particles in the air travel a long distance. And so literally Easter Island, which was the peak of a mountaintop on that entire continent that used to be there when the water level was about 1,000 feet or 800 feet, lower than it is now. 600 feet is what they're telling me comparative, but 800 feet when they were built. So when they were built 60,000 years ago, the water level was 800 feet lower than it is now. So there was a whole, it was after Pangea. Pangea was when all the land masses were attached to each other because the water level on this earth was so low, because there was literally, I would say, almost a quarter of the top and a quarter of the bottom of the earth was covered in ice. So all of what is Canada today was under ice for more than 150,000 or 100,000 years on this earth. And so the bottom part was almost the same. So you would have the tip of South Africa, but that's up high enough. And the tip of South America would be underwater. So Argentina would be completely under ice. And the temperate zone was everything in between. So there was a lot less landmass, or it was actually close to the same. My brain is doing the math as a scientist now. So the landmass that was available for the human race to be on was in a smaller distance, from a quarter of the way down through past the equator into a quarter of the way from the poles. But there was more landmass in that area because it was all one entire landmass at the time. Whereas now we have all this separation with all this extra water, but the exact same amount of land is available for the humans to be on. However, there's more water. So I know that's confusing to some of you, but my brain, and they're telling me from the other side that it's the cyclical nature. So the truth is the exact same amount of land is now available for humans to live on, but there's less ice, but there's more water. So back when it was Pangea, it was the exact same square footage of possible land for the human race to live on. That's me channeling that. That's not me saying that because I think it. That's them telling me in my head. So I'm not making that up, guys. I know I'm not making it up because I have learned the difference in that sometimes we can get confused and go, am I making that up? And you guys that know Jamie Watson-Wolf, she is very humble enough to say, am I making that up? Give me clarification, please. Tell me I'm not making that up. So sometimes when she's not sure of herself, she actually says that out loud, where most psychics would never do that. And those are the ones that are in service to self, and they're making money. They don't want to look weak. She's not afraid of that. There's so much more about her. She's actually asked me to do a reading. She did that on her show the other day, last week, when she said, Leo, do you know? And I didn't tell her anything yet, but I'm going to in the future when she's ready for it. She just doesn't know it yet. Because there's more to her than she realizes, but I can't tell her until she's ready. Cara, you probably know. If you know Jamie, you know what I'm talking about. And I think Denise knows too, right? We've talked about it. I've talked about her with other people. She has a role that she hasn't stepped fully into yet, and I can't force anyone to do anything. So we're waiting for her. It's funny because people said that about me when I was 21. We're waiting for her now to see if she's going to expand her consciousness on this life and go further than she is. She's curious, so she may, but I can't. No one can force anyone, so we have to just watch. And that, if you don't know the story, when I was 21, or I think maybe I was 22 at the time, because I got married to my wife at 22 years of age, and this was just prior to that when we were engaged. So I could have been 21 or 22. Depending on when it was. I'm thinking I was 22 because we got married in December. So there was that, 12 months that I was, or actually was, no, I would have been 21 because I would have turned 22 in September. So it was prior to that. So I was 21 at the time. Not that it's important. I'm just a stickler because I'm a scientist. And she had went to a psychic. I wasn't there. She went to a psychic and then asked the psychic about me because she said, is this the right guy for me to marry? And she played me the audio tape later of the session. Well, not all of it, but that part that was pertaining to me. And I didn't ask to hear all of what she had talked about. But she said, she told me about that. And I was like, no way. And she goes, no, here, let me play it for you. And so she primed it and said, here, and played it. So she asked about me. And the psychic, who I never met, she laughed and she said, well, yeah, we're watching him very intently. And she said, well, you're laughing about that. What do you mean? And she said, well, he came here to be a teacher and he got angry at the universe, not in this last lifetime, but the one before that. He got angry at the universe because of the way things are going. And we're not going to get into all the details of that, but he decided that he was mad and that he was going to take off the entire lifetime. He quit and he refused to be spiritual and he refused to teach. And that's what he did his entire last life. And now in this life, we're waiting to see if he's going to, again, go back to teaching. And at the time, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. My father was training me and had just given me a Merlin title. And I was learning all of this stuff about what the world was and what was going on in all of these religions. And I had this knowledge of military history and all of the stuff that I was learning. And I hadn't made up my mind what I'm going to do with this going forward. And I knew that I was being called. I knew that I had this draw to do this really intense. But I was not sure if I wanted to have any part of it. I thought about going into politics. I thought, and at the time I had already been at that point, I had been for 10 years recruited by the federal government of the United States to join their skunk works programs and to go into the deep state. Started at 11 years of age. And I was 21 and they didn't stop until I was 24. 27 really, but 24 when they slowed down their process. They were literally trying to recruit me into the deep state of the United States of America to work for them because of the abilities that I have. And now I know because of who I am and my soul, who my soul is. They were trying to get a hold of me before I was awake enough to realize 100% who I am. Even though I thought I was awake then, and I was, compared to 99% of the population, very, but I still didn't realize my full potential of who and what I am. And they were trying to get a hold of me before I did that, to use me as long as they could and try to corrupt me and get me to create for them so they could use it and make a weapon out of it. So I hadn't made up my mind what to do, even though I had. Look up, if you look up, Rick said, I'm going to Google Merlin title. Look up the 18 lessons of Merlin or the 21 lessons of Merlin, and you'll see, or read the Sword and the Stone, the book about the movies always start when Arthur is in his teenage years. It started, his training started when he was like 6. And it was, the book was written by a druid, probably a Merlin, even though the book is people say, well, that's not really truly the story of Arturius when he was here. You call him Arthur. His name was actually Arturius because he was, in fact, a Roman citizen. He was a commander in the Roman and became a Roman. He wasn't a general, but he was a colonel. Commander is what they called it at the time. He was actually a commander of the Roman legion and the Roman military at Hadrian's Wall. And he was actually in charge of the foreigners, which they called the Salmatian Knights, which you know is the Knights of the Round Table. And they were constructs, slaves, taken from all of Eastern Europe at the time, all of the Viking races from Western all the way into the Eastern. In fact, Lancelot was a Mongolian. And he was in charge of that ragtag slave race. The reason that the Romans didn't murder everybody in all of those villages was that they pledged their fealty, their loyalty to the Roman Empire, and that meant that they came and took the firstborn son or every few years they would go to the villages and they would take the oldest boy, and he would have to work for them for 10 years, and you see if he survived for 10 years, he got his freedom and he got to go home, or he could stay in the Roman legion or do whatever he wanted. And that was literally the slavery of their penance to prove, so that the Romans wouldn't kill them all. You get to live, but that you have to pay with. One of your sons has to fight and do whatever we tell him to do. And if he survives that, they did that here in the United States. People don't know that. They did it all over the world. When the Irish came to the United States, there was a movie called Far and Away that Tom Cruise made. That was a true story that he told about that whole scenario when the migration of the Irish, as they were starving and being starved by the English as slaves, came to America to find a better life. When you got off the boat, that's why people would smuggle people across into the United States, because if you came here legally, they would literally turn you into slaves. When you got here, they called it indentured servitude. That's what they still call it today, to get around the word that you're a slave. And when you were the man would get off the ship and they would take you to the left on the dock, and you would go to another ship, and the women would get off the ship, and whether they were married to you or not, whoever they were, they went to the right. The men would go down and sign a paper to join the United States cavalry in the military, and they would go out and fight against and murder the Native Americans in the United States, or anyone that they wanted to kill, for 5 years. At the end of that 5-year indentured servitude to America, you would become an American citizen and let go and be free to do whatever you wanted. However, they wouldn't hire any Irish to do anything. And all the signs said man needed, man wanted, no Irish need apply. So they wouldn't give you a job afterwards. And they wouldn't give you a place to live. You had to make your own way. And they had certain trades that they didn't want to do, and the slaves did, like garbage men, firemen, cops, priests, peddlers, things like that were common folks, and that's how they kept everybody down. The women would go to the right, and they were servants in the households of the rich and the elite and the aristocrats, which they got raped, they got impregnated all the time, and if they survived for 5 years, they also got to go free, and they were abused sexually, abused as slaves, and they worked for no money and for 5 years, and then they would do the same. You're out on the street, your ass out, you get nothing, and make your own way, and hopefully if your husband survived and you didn't have some rich guy's kid that they took from you, you would actually be able to, at that point, start a life. That was the truth of America until the Irish and the people, the Italians and the Irish and all the slave races, the Norwegians and all of that, made unions and fought against that for their own rights. This happened all around the world. So it's happening now with the Mexicans coming across. They're doing the same thing. So my point is that the modus operandi hasn't changed, and people are just waking up to that now in the world. They're going this, don't get me wrong, but the movie that we talked about in the chats, that Jim Caviezel just made, is a true story of an American ex Secret Service agent that quit his job to save people from the slave trade, and people are just waking up to it. They're like, there's this huge slave trade, and it's bigger now than it's ever been before, and no one knows about it. It's exactly the same size that it's always been. You're just becoming aware of it in this lifetime. So you think that there's such a billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and it's bigger now than it was when the slaves were out in the open. No, it's exactly the same, because even when the slaves were out in the open, there was also still an underground slave trade that was a sex trade that was exactly what's going on now then. Okay, you don't realize it because they don't talk about it. They don't want you to know that. But I know that it's a cyclical nature, and it's the exact same numbers now that it was 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. It is exactly the same. It hasn't changed. Okay. But if we say that to you, some of you already, I can sense it, are going, well, then why are we doing anything? Because nothing ever changes. Because it's not actually true. Things do change. And a lot has changed. They have had to go and hide underground with slavery in and of itself, because slavery was taken from them as a commodity. So they had to put it underground and still do it. Okay. So I'm not saying that it won't ever stop, because it will. just like the society. But you guys out there in the world have to get it into your ideology and understanding that this entire way of life that you are dependent on currently needs to and is ending. Okay. But it's not going to end abruptly and no one's going to have any food or water or any of that. It's not. But it's going to come to a very quick end faster than anyone could imagine. And they're selling you on the idea that that's bad by telling you Revelations, end of the world, end times, Ragnarok, and Kali Yuga, and it's bad, and the devil is who you have to fight against because the devil is making this happen. That's not the truth. And that's part of what I'm going to blow the world up on with this book. And there's other people, and that's why I mentioned the guys from Croatia, man, woman, personages who I have yet to identify from Croatia, or wrote that in another language and published it in the Croatian language. I have no idea, but it's up on my page on my wall on Facebook. The link to it I posted last night. You can go there and copy and paste, but it's a very huge article. But I'm going to have to translate it so that I can read it. Just what I translated was exactly what I thought it was saying from what I could gather. And the images, if you understand the images, because I understand the esotericness of images and I can decipher those, I was getting the gist before I understood the words. And as I was starting to try and figure the words out, I recognize that word, and I know that word instinctively, so I know it's not any language that I'm used to, but it's part of a language that I'm used to, and I could figure that shit out. I've done that. It's also been part of my study my entire life, is to figure out languages, and I have a really good grasp of that. That's why the government wanted to fucking hire me, because I code break, I language break, I have these abilities, and now I realize that because I've read the scrolls, and I can read them. There is not a scroll on this earth that I cannot translate for you. The ones they said lock up in your mind and no one can understand that. Yeah, 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, those people would never understand that. But I do now. It's not because I'm thinking I do and I'm making it up. I've literally cross-referenced for a year and 7 months. I have been studying and restudying and restudying and restudying all of the things that I spent my entire life studying. And I'm making correlations that weren't there before. And it all happened in an instant when I read a scroll that disappeared in front of my eyes after I read it and got it into my head. And I can tell you what it said, but I can't prove it because I can't find it anymore. Well, the truth is, that's the weird part about it, is the scroll that I read is every scroll. Most of them are saying the same things over and over and over. And then I realized, because I was already onto that all the Bibles and tomes are as well. So it's not as complicated as people think. Everyone expects it to be this thing that's going to say, and Jesus is going to return on this date. That's entirely not the point. None of that is what these messages are. None of it. None of it. At some point, there it is in a way, but the truth is, it's about ascension. They're all about ascension and how to get yourself unstuck. All of them. All of them. I haven't found one that is, even the ones that tell on a 3D level, because everything, you have to know this. As within, so without. As below, so above. Everything that is internalized in your spiritual growth is externalized and happening in front of your eyes in this illusion. Everything that is happening before your eyes in this illusion is also happening in the universe at the exact same time. So everything that is happening in your mind, in your spirituality, is manifesting in the physical in front of you and everyone else. And everything that is happening here is identical to what's going on within every single human soul and otherwise. And then beyond that, it's the exact same thing that's going on a universal level. So everything on a small scale, on a micro scale, is the macro. So literally what's happening to your cells inside your body is the same thing that is happening to your body. And your body is a cell that is reacting with all the other cells within the body of the earth. And the Earth is a cell that is reacting within the body of the solar system. The solar system is a cell that is acting within the body of the universe or a galaxy. And the galaxy is a cell that is reacting within the bodies of the other cells that are other galaxies in the universe. And the universe is a cell that is reacting with the other cells that are other universes in the multiverse. And that continues. Okay. And that continues in both directions. And it is only by the computer that has realized fractals that people are able to see those images. And like little children seeing shiny objects, everyone has no idea what that means. And they're like, well, it just says the cyclical nature, a scientist will tell you, because it does. And that every time you zoom in further and further and further and further, it never changes. It is the same. Yes, because it spirals. And it's infinity. And it will go inward and inward and inward and inward for infinity. It cannot ever be calculated because it doesn't end. It goes outward the same way. But they haven't looked at that one yet. They haven't turned around and looked at the fractals going out. They see the spirals, but they go, well, that's a spiral, so it spirals, ha, 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 and it goes on. But then 3, 6, and 9 is the governing bodies that turn that back on itself and create the closed system. Right? So Kari said, I just got the image of the page master. Right? And what is that? Right? So what is the verse? Right? What are we saying, Rick? What is the verse? I'm putting my glasses on here. What is the verse question? And then it says, uni is one, mempty is many. Yes. What is the verse? So, right, multi, right? So, yeah, okay, so that's alpha and omega. That's 3 and 9, or 9 and 9. 9 is the alpha and the omega. It is the Higgs boson, the God particle. So the universe, or the multiverse, the verse is all that is. It is infinity. It is infinite. So it is literally 9 is nothing, 0, and everything, none. Okay, so that is the 0 point that is as below, so above, as within, so without. The 0 point is the controlling Higgs boson where nothingness and everything exists at the exact same time. The theory in physics that would kind of explain that is Schrodinger's cat. And the theory of that is called a wave superposition state of nothingness and everything at once. Only they didn't realize what they were onto. So the theory of Schrodinger's cat is that you have a cat and you put it in a steel box that is so completely 100% sealed from air so that it can go into space and it has its own air in there. But you also have a cyanide capsule in there. And the cyanide capsule will release. You don't have to have the cyanide capsule. You can do without it. But the original theory was a cyanide capsule. And you don't know when you retrieve the box whether the cat is alive or dead until you observe the cat by opening the box and find out if the cat survived or if it died. So then people took the cyanide out and said, well, if you put cyanide in there and it explodes, it's going to kill the cat 100%. So the theory didn't work right. So they took the cyanide out. That's why you don't hear the theory that way now. And the theory is if you get the cat before the cat runs out of air, there's a possibility that the cat can be alive and also dead, but you don't know that until you unseal the box and open it up. That's Pandora's box. Once you open it, you can't close the box because you'll now know the information that's in there. So it's just a retelling of Pandora's box, and Pandora's box was 3,000 years ago. And that was, you don't know what's in the box until you open it. But once you open it, it's too late. And now whatever's in the box, you're going to know about, or you're going to release into the world. That is as below, so above. That is what you unleash on the earth, I shall too unleash in heaven. What you sow on earth, I shall too sow in heaven. There's the term that you get, that you reap what you sow. So that is what all of those analogies are. They're all the same allegory being told a different way. The reason I say that is the universe itself is an allegory that is being told in the exact same way on every level to every being, whatever their development is. They're still going through the same cyclical nature that is only 0 through 9. expanded out exponentially for infinity, so that you can then pull back and count them as levels and levels and levels and layers and layers and layers. But the truth is, it's a cyclical nature that is a closed cyclical nature that only goes from 0 to 9 and back again. And that's where it stays, in that cyclical nature, even though there's another one that starts from 0 to 9, and then from 9 to 18, and then from 18 to, do you see? Those are just higher levels of vibration for beings as they transition to a higher level, going back to energy itself. But it's still the exact same cyclical nature. It doesn't ever change. And that's why people are like tripping on that. Well, there's no free will. There's absolute free will. However, the universe is expanding to where it's infinite, but it's only a closed scenario and doesn't need to be any larger than that for it to work. So it's perfect. Do you see? So that is literally, I'm pulling you guys now to a point where they're starting to shut me down. I'm pulling you into a place that is so high that they're starting to say I'm just on the precipice of saying something that is too much information, and they're going to stop me, but now they're going to let me push as far as I can go. Okay. So literally you have to look at things on every level and realize, and that's what pulls you. Yes. So Schrodinger's cat. So that's literally, I know that's a long version of what you're saying, but the verse is the total overall concept of each octave. That is that cyclical nature of 0 through 9. That is what the verse is. So it's a multiverse because it's infinite. So the only way, we have to give it a word. Do you see? We have to give it a word that means multi, that means a multi-dimension or a multi, because it's not just a dimension, it's also a density, and even more than that, like Kari said before, and more. It's infinite. So because of that, we have to, where everyone wants to put it in a box here of a conceptual word. That's why we say universe, solar system, this reality, 3D. Everything has to, at this place where you're just learning that I am, you have to be able to say, because this entire verse that is third dimension is trying to keep you here. So all the concepts here are conceptual to this place as a point of reference. So when you say the universe, you're thinking of a place that is really, really big, right? And when you go the multiverse, people 20 years ago alone, when you said multiverse, said you were crazy for even saying that. Science is now saying, wait, there's more than one universe. Some of the stars we thought were just solar systems are in fact universes. Entire, not galaxies, but universes. Okay, so they're realizing now they're bigger than galaxies, and that some of the points of light we're seeing are galaxies that are close by us, and others are entire universes outside this universe. 40 years ago, that was an alien concept. When Ra was talking to Dawn, who was a nuclear physicist, or just a physicist, he wasn't a nuclear physicist, he was a physicist, at the time, had the paperwork. He couldn't fathom the ideology of a multiverse. 40 years hence, today, that's a common word used by physicists. Do you see? So the development of the human species, even the non-spiritual physicists who believe in only the physical reality, which is what all evil people only can fathom, but then some people who are in service to others who are non-spiritual because they refuse to think that there is anything spiritual, and they literally chop half of the universe and the reality of the universe off and refuse to ignore it. Right? I know Kari's saying, wee, right? Because yes, I'm literally like throwing you guys to the stream out there now, right? So literally, you have to see everything as the expansion inward and outward that far every single time. That concept in your brain should be what you're trying to manifest as your possibility for reality. Because if you're expanding that, then you're pushing your horizons inward and outward at the same time. So that's part of what is in my book that's trying to teach you is that mindset too. And we give you little clues like knowing yourself is like knowing the face of God. Looking in the mirror is like looking at the face of God. Looking at a stranger, you should be saying to yourself, when I see that stranger, I see myself. When I see that stranger, I see God. That's expanding your consciousness in a spiritual way to the concept of a God. And once you get that into your consciousness and start expanding that, then you start asking questions about that expansion, and that helps you to expand further. Do you see? And then when you start doing that, you continue, and as you continue outward, you have to go inward at the same. So we push you to do that in all aspects, and that's why I'm literally pulling you guys upwards and inwards and upwards at the same time as far as I have. And I can't go any further because they're really pushing me back down now. And I felt it. That's why you noticed my cadence stopped and I kind of came back to 3D reality, because I was pulling you in a way that they were becoming uncomfortable with, and saying that I was going to talk in a way that I can't do on the air currently. However, you know, if you look at Drumballo Melchizedek, when he was doing that in 2012, I still do the same thing. We have that happen to us, to where we say things and realize we're getting in them. They stop us. And if we try to push, they erase it. They stop, or they take it from our memory, and we go blank. And they won't let us have it back. The universe will not let us have it back until we surrender and say, not only just say it, and I'm going to lie and get it back and tell them anyway. You have to literally, they don't let you have it back until you're in a place where you're not going to say it. And then when you are, then they give you that memory again. And the warning is always there. We can only remember what we as a collective are ready to remember. As an individual, the same thing happens. And those of us who know more can't tell anyone, because first of all, you won't believe us. Secondly, you won't listen. Thirdly, you'll think I'm crazy. Fourthly, you'll turn me off. We know that, and we're aware of that. So we pull you guys until you do that. And when you leave, we don't get mad. That's where Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. It's not your fault, because it's been done to you. And you did this to yourself, because the truth is, you created this. We all created this scenario so that we wouldn't know. So we're pretending we don't know who we are. And everything here is trying to keep us from remembering, so that we have to learn and remember. Right? Sakari said, you're him and he's you. Absolutely. Right? Okay. So let's continue with, then this is what Ra is showing you, that on both sides, there are people on both sides that know about this. There are people that are in service to self, who are utilizing this information that I just gave you, but I'm in service to others. I'm trying to give you this so that you'll know about it. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. So to know a thing is to control a thing by their standards. All right. So do you see? So that's how they think. So to know a thing is to control that thing. Once you know it, you control it. Because then if you're good at something, never do it for free. Remember the Joker said that? If you're good at something, never do it for free. And the reason for that is he was in service to self. And so he wouldn't just do it because people need to pay you for it. So that's not a bad thing. It's not evil to think that way. Because right now, money is what everybody needs to survive. So it's not evil to work within the system to try and help people. It's evil to know it and not tell you about it, and then only teach you a certain amount of it. That's what they're doing, and making you pay more for it. For instance, it used to be free, 60 years ago in this country, in the state of California, college was free. Now at that same college that was free in the 1960s, it cost you $60,000 a semester to be taught the same thing that you got for free a generation ago. Okay. And then if you go back to the 70s, the price for a college in this country at an Ivy League was like $7,000 a year. Now they're $150,000 a year for the same college 35, 40 years later. I remember going to college in the 80s, and it was costing me $1 a unit. $1 a unit. That was all. So I was paying like $100 a semester for college. That same college today will cost you $10,000 a year. Okay. So they're literally not allowing you to have an education unless you have money, because they've taken control in the last 40 to 60 years of the educational system around the world. And they're making it out of the reach of 90% of the population to even get an education. And then they're controlling the narrative about what you know for free. And who has the words to say any of this? Why? Because people like me are telling the world about what's really going on, and people are listening. And you guys are remembering and waking up and agreeing and going, wait a minute. So now what's happening is the inertia of that is unlocking the ability for everyone to see, and people looking around and going, when did this world get so bad? This is actually doing really good. I was killed in many lifetimes for half, a third, for a concept of what I say to you now. I've just spent 2 hours and 10 minutes, and every word that has come out of my mouth would get me murdered on this earth in every timeline, in every period on this planet, up to and including 60 years ago. Every word I have said to you, and had me put in jail or canceled since. And I'm still able to tell you this, and you're hearing it. Why? Things have changed. Okay? Kari says, here it's actually easy. You just have to realize what it is you're learning and look at the bigger picture of it, maybe off to the side or below or up above, not right in front of you. Correct. Because what is right in front of you, what Kari's getting at, is only what they're showing you. So you have to look at the bigger picture, the side, what's over to the left, what's to the right, what's below you, what's above you, what's behind you. Because if you only look straight ahead, you're only going to see what they're feeding you. And that's the narrative. Don't look there, look here. And that's what they're doing with everything. The news is that way. The television is that way. The programming on television is the same way. They're telling you white people are evil. They're all racist. And that's in all the television shows, the most popular television shows. I was just watching, literally, they're trying to find this guy, and it was FBI Most Wanted. And literally, their black person was the victim. And she says, they're like, well, we got to find this guy who's, this was in, well, that happened there too. You have to have a white, angry white man to find a white, angry white man, a racist, angry white man. And then literally Justified, the television show is renewed. If you guys ever watched it with Timothy Olyphant, they redid it, and they're starting a new series called Justified. And this one's called City Prime Evil. So it's part 2, basically. And now he's in Chicago, where before he was down south. Now he's in Chicago. And literally in there, this guy murders this woman. She was white, but a judge who was a black guy. And now they have white cops looking for him, the FBI and the city police of Chicago, along with Timothy Olyphant's character, who is Raylan Givens, and he's a U.S. Marshal. And the wife of or a sister or somebody who was a friend or the family member of the judge who was murdered was also black. And she says, well, obviously they got to hire a racist, white, angry white man to find another racist, angry white man. So they're already portraying the bad guy as a Nazi, KKK, racist, white supremacist guy, and they're hiring the same guy, Raylan Givens, who's a cowboy with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, who's obviously a racist, white, angry, middle-aged white man, to go after that's what it takes to find one of those. And so the hatred and bigotry is in the programming that they're teaching you by watching the show openly. And he doesn't say anything about them being racist, but they play his character as if he looks at her and you can see the look on his face where he feels sorry for her, but he's not going to say anything because forgive her, Father, for she knows not what she does. And I looked at that and rewound it to see, is he just taking that, or are they just painting that as her being a bigot and a racist towards him? And he doesn't say a word because he realizes she's angry, she's upset. The truth is, it wasn't a hate crime because he was black. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the guy, and you see that when you watch the show. He's just a psycho. And he didn't know this guy got in his way when he was trying to drive, because he was trying to go and rob this other guy who his girlfriend was trying to set up, and this guy in a car got in his way. He had no idea what the guy looked like. It was nighttime. And he crashed the guy off, and when he walked up to the car with the gun, it was a black guy. the guy reached for his own gun because the judge had a gun, so he killed the judge. And then he was like, who the hell is this fucking guy shooting at me and trying to run me off the road? He himself, the judge, was very racist, very angry, and was like, who's this motherfucker? And I'm going to crash him off the road because I'm the judge, and I'll have him arrested. And so he was very self-entitled, and you see that. So there is no racism that has anything to do with it, but that was the narrative that she was portraying. And most people on a low level are going to just see that and go, yep, that guy's a cowboy. He's obviously a racist. And that plays perfectly into what they're trying to do with the country and Western singer right now, because he wrote a song that said, try that shit in a small town. Oh, they're obviously going to lynch naggers. He's standing in front of a courthouse that they used to lynch people in front of. They never show you any pictures of that, and they don't tell you of a case where that actually happened. They just make this paint of, well, it's in the South, so they must have hanged niggers in front of that courthouse. When it's just a courthouse, some courthouse, they don't even know what city it's in, where the guy grew up in, who sang the song, who wrote the song, and he had filmed it saying, you can do that shit in the city and get away with it. You try that in a small town. The citizens and the people in the small town aren't going to let you do that. And people are like, oh, it's because they're all racist. No, it's because they got guns and they don't put up with that bullshit. And that stuff really doesn't happen in those areas. Not because those people are trying to kill people who are black. It's because those people don't put up with it. And they don't let their cops walk away and let them burn the city down. Has nothing to do with race. It has to do with, that's our fucking shit. That's my store. That's my uncle's store. That's the only store we have in town. That's our Chick-fil-A. Get away from that. You're not burning it down. You want to go burn something down, go back to your city and burn it down like you normally do. We'll let you do that because your people will let you do it, and so will the politicians in charge. In fact, they want it to be that way. All of that is the narrative that is, don't look here, only look at what we're showing you. It's the same thing I told you about equity and inequality. They're telling you that it's okay to be criminals and burn down a city because you're just mad. Because the system, which they are in control of and they are a part of, and they're the ones who created the system. Okay? They're the ones that are telling you that the system is evil. But you realize that they make their living because they are the system. Don't look here. Don't look there. Don't look there. Look down on the street where those people are mad and angry because they just are poor and they need money. Do you see my point? They're the ones who are telling you it's okay for those people, those poor people, to do it, are the ones that are paying those poor people to do it. I got deleted during COVID for showing you that. They don't publish anymore since 2019 and 2020. Go and look up a website in the United States. I don't know how it is in your country, Rick, but if you go look up a website of a company, they used to have to show you by law all of the money that they got from what donors. And people like me went online and took pictures of it and linked it to people online and showed where the money came from. And right after we did that, the very people who are in charge currently, who were in charge then, who are still in charge now, changed the laws in the United States that companies no longer have to show you their donors of where they make their money. So now you don't know where their money comes from. But when it counted, people like me were on there showing you, because I went on there and said, you guys need to look at Black Lives Matter and find out who gave them their money. Here's a link to their website and where their money is and where it came from and who's giving them that money. Those people are paying the same people who changed the law so that you, me, and no one else can know that those people are the ones giving the money away to those people for them to do that. Because people like me asked those questions and pointed that out to you during the riots in this United States and around the world. And those things got changed so that you can't see them anymore. Why? Because they're hiding something. Because if they weren't, and that's why all of a sudden the whole Black Lives Matter thing blew up when you could still look at it. And people were saying you need to look at all the properties that Black Lives Matter is buying with their money and who gave them the money. And I showed that Bloomberg and all of the Democrats and all of these progressives that are in power now were giving and funneling money to all of these people and paying them to go to places and giving them all of their uniforms and all of their weapons and putting them in place and bussing them in and giving them T-shirts and giving them megaphones and giving them signs, paying for all of that to put them out there to burn that shit down. And people like me showed you that. And then We said they're corrupt and they're taking the money and donating it back to them. It's a laundering scheme where they're just trading money in a circle between each other so that they can claim it on taxes, and they all keep their status as a nonprofit. But the truth is they're transporting hundreds of billions of dollars back and forth to each other all year long. I donated all my money, so I don't have any money. And then they go, I donated all my money, so I don't have any money. And so they just keep donating it to each other, and they keep generating more because they get you guys giving them more. So they just keep getting more and more money, and they siphon it off as payments because I'm the boss. So I get $100 million a year, and they're siphoning that off, and they're keeping the exact same amount of money flowing in a circle constantly so that they keep their status as a nonprofit. And then they're buying up properties under the different names of the different people who are in the company who can take it as a salary. So they're enriching themselves while stealing your money and making it by sleight of hand. And I showed all this and got deleted for it. And now you can't even see that anymore because they don't want you to know about it. Don't look there. Look here at what we're trying to get you to look at. Fear your neighbor, fear your friends, fear your family. Pick a side, whether you have a D or an R after your name, and fight and give us money. Send me money, send me green. Heaven you will meet. Make your contribution and you'll get a better seat. Bow to Leper Messiah. That's a 40-year-old song by the band Metallica. It's a 40-year-old song by the band Metallica. And it was true then and it's true today. Okay. So it's called Leper Messiah. You can look it up. It's on the I think it's not the Ride. It might be the Ride the Lightning album, but if it's not, it's definitely on the one after that. I don't think it goes back to Ride the Lightning. I think it's their third album, which is I can't think of the name of it now. I was thinking Spirituality, and then I went into Metallica. It's the one that they have the crosses and the puppet strings from all the crosses in the field in front of you, and I don't remember what that's called. Penny, tell me that. Just tell me the name of that album. It's not Ride the Lightning. It's the one after that. Master of Puppets. Thank you. Master of Puppets. I think it's on the It is. It's on the Master of Puppets album. That entire album is about that. It's about the Master of Puppets, the evil empire that is the system. And all of the songs are showing you different allegories, singing, bards singing about all these different allegories, giving you the same information that I just told you in songs. Metallica is great for that. All of their albums are written that way, and they're all telling you the same stories over and over and over again. And it's done in a speed metal fashion that all of the fashion police of speed metal and algorithms allowed them, but they suppressed them. They wouldn't give them any airtime on the radio. The MTV would not play any of their videos, and all of their songs on their first three albums, all of those albums were sold by word of mouth by individuals around the world, talking about it and playing them for each other and buying the albums and going to their concerts. And then MTV gives them an award. And Lars Ulrich, the drummer and frontman of the band, well, the whole band got up on stage to accept the award. And he said, I want to thank MTV and the music industry because without all of them, we still accomplished all of this anyways. Oops. That's what he said live on television. Because they didn't play them ever from the time they came out with their Kill 'Em All album all the way up until that album came out, and they wouldn't play them on the radio and they wouldn't play them on MTV and any of their videos because they didn't want that message being out to the population of the earth, and they still conquered the planet without them. And now they play them, but now you can see them on YouTube, but you couldn't even find them on YouTube back then when YouTube started. It wasn't until about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago now, that YouTube started putting them out there. But then again, the internet really is only, 25 years old. Right? So yeah, the internet's not even 30 years old yet, or it is about 30 years old. So literally, right? Yeah, Injustice for All, right? Think about that. That's another one that is, or maybe that was on that, right? Injustice for All. Love Metallica, love that band. I know those guys. I met them. They used to live next door to my wife, my ex-wife. They're literally their manager lived next door to my ex-wife. I literally met them and hung out. Literally, James Hetfield, when he was in recovery, when they were all getting clean, during that time they took off somehow. I don't know where he was, but he used to walk to my store in Berkeley I was managing a arts and crafts studio, arts and crafts store in Berkeley. I'm not going to tell you the name because I'm not getting paid by them, so I'm not giving them a commercial. But a prominent, large company. And he came wandering in one day, and one of the guys that worked there with me was an ex-FBI agent. He was retired, and he was working as a retired guy, and he was like full on at the time. I was 32 or 33. James was about 38 then. He's a few years older than me, and literally he came in and caught me flirting with this chick. And no one knew who he was, and I did, and my staff did. And when he paid with a credit card, when I asked him for his autograph, I need your signature here. He looked at me, and I was like, "No, you're paying with a credit card. I need you to sign. I'm not going to let anybody steal your stuff." And he came in like every day. He came in and hung out with us. He was buying frames for his girlfriend at the time. I think he's married now, but at the time, I don't know if he was married. I don't remember if he's married or not, but he was buying frames for pictures, and he talked about it. He was in sobriety, and he was getting sober and going through all of that. And they were not on tour or making albums and any of that. And that was right after a year in the life of Metallica when they talked about that. That's in that documentary. And literally, he came in and he hung out. I don't even know if he remembers it, but he did it for the whole summer. He was in there for almost every day. He was in there for 3 to 4 hours a day, hanging out in there, sometimes only an hour. At lunchtime, he'd come in and sit on the bar stools at the desk, and we would all just hang out and talk. I would do my job. Well, he almost got me beat up one time because there was this chick that I was flirting with. She was really good looking. He was surprised she didn't recognize him. And he was flirting with her too, but he realized that she was flirting with me. And he was like, "Dude, I think she likes you." And I'm like, "She's on the phone with her boyfriend." And he overheard us talking. And he was like, "Where are you?" And she was like, "I'm just at this place." And he actually came there, and he was like, "Dude, you're going to get your ass kicked by her boyfriend." He was giving me a hard time. And then he was trying to get me in trouble with her boyfriend. "Oh, man, yeah, he was flirting with your old lady." I was like, "Dude, shut up." So I don't know if he remembers any of that, because I know when you go through sobriety, because I did that. Not when I was drinking, I didn't have an issue this time. But when I was on drugs as a teenager and I got off drugs, I actually lost some of my memory. And I think that was the other things that were contributing to that as well. But I do know that when you get off of drugs, sometimes that happens. But I think there was something else that happened there, because I lost like 4 years of my life, most of my memories. I'm not going to get involved in that right now. But I believe there was a 20 impact that happened at that point. Anyways, so literally he did that. It was funny, right? Because he was hanging out. He almost got me beat up, and no one knew who he was, and my staff was fawning all over him. They couldn't believe it. And the old man who was the FBI agent didn't give a shit that was James Hetfield. Who's that? Some rock star? Don't care. And I'm like, he's bigger than the Beatles already. Like, he's bigger than the Beatles already, right now, currently. And so he did that, and then I didn't see him again after that. So I have no idea if he ever remembers it to this day. So if any of you know James Hetfield, and ask him if he remembers the sobriety in Berkeley when he went to the craft store and hung out. If he doesn't, I don't expect that he would. So, but my point is that band is like other bands that sing these songs that some people think are one song. There's another band that was satanic at one point, when Satanism was utilized by the bards to be anti-establishment. They weren't actually Satan worshipers or evil. But everyone thought they were, like the band Judas Priest. A lot of people think Rob Halford is evil when in fact he's not. And they were singing about Judas not being evil like everyone is being told in the religions, and that Judas was actually sacrificing himself like Jesus was, because Jesus told him to. But you don't know about that unless you know about that. But that's what Judas Priest is about. They're not actually evil or satanic in any way. They're all their songs are the opposite. Rob Halford was the same way when he was on his own. All of his songs for his own, when he was on his own band and in a different bands. When he quit from Judas Priest, now he's back with them. I don't know if they're still touring, because they're almost in their 80s now. They're all in their 70s, close to 80s. But my point is that these bands, a lot of the songs that they sing, Public Enemy is another one. That's a rap band. And a few other speed metal bands that sing in death metal bands. And people don't know. They think their words are evil when the truth is they're not. they're singing about the same thing. And the reason I'm telling you this is the cyclical nature in everything. It's there for you to see if you learn it. It's esoteric. If you don't know what to look at, and this is going back to what Kari was saying about looking everywhere but what's right in front of you, because right in front of you is the lie that is keeping you stuck. So it's your job to realize, and this is what Ra is talking about here, and I'm going to continue because I do want to finish this one before the day's over. I know I've gone on along, but there's this entire scenario that Ra is uncovering in this session is very important, and I'm spending a lot of time on it because of that. Okay. And I stopped it there last time, and I stopped it here again this time. Ra is showing you both sides and what they're utilizing the same information to distract. One is distracting you away from the truth, and the other one is trying to distract you from that distraction back to the truth. Those of us who are in service to others are trying to distract you from what they're distracting you to have you look around. And that's what Kari was saying when she says, don't look what's right in front of you, because what's right in front of you is only what they want you to know, because they're controlling the narrative. Okay, so let's continue. So those to retort, those who are in service to others are aware of the cyclical nature of the universe, and they're keeping your focus as a external hard drive or another ego to be concentrating on solidifying you in this reality, as a reality, this illusion as a reality. And we are utilizing the same information and trying to show you this is the illusion and that the reality is something completely different, and they don't want you to know about it. And we're trying to tell you, look to the left, look to the right, look up, look down, look within, look without. Don't look at what they're focusing you on, and see what they're actually doing while they're keeping your focus on a certain task.
20.38 Questioner. What structures were built in South America? Ra. I am Ra. In this location were fashioned some characteristic statues, some formations of what you call rock and some formations involving rock and earth. 20.39 Questioner. Were the lines at Nazca included in this? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 20.40 Questioner. Since this can only be seen from an altitude, of what benefit was this? Ra. I am Ra. The formations were of benefit because charged with energy of power. 20.41 Questioner. I'm a little confused. These lines at Nazca are hardly understandable for an entity walking on the surface. He cannot see anything but a disruption of the surface. However, if you go up to a high altitude you can see the patterns. How was it of benefit to the entities walking on the surface? Ra. I am Ra. At the remove of the amount of time/space which is now your present, it is difficult to perceive that at the time/space 60,000 years ago the Earth was formed in such a way as to be visibly arranged in powerful structural designs, from the vantage point of distant hills. 20.42 Questioner.
See, so that's like the Nazca lines, right? Where people are like, you would have to be up in the air to see that. Well, if you were up on mountaintops a long ways away and you could visibly see that structure from there, you could witness that. You have to realize that you're seeing things from your perspective today. Again, do you see? So you're applying your perspective of, well, if I'm standing in the middle of the crop circle, I can't see the crop circle. All I see is a bunch of plants laying on the ground. You're absolutely right, but it's not designed for you to see from that angle. Do you see? So the Nazca lines weren't designed for you to be standing down there measuring lines and going, this is how they drew them. But how would they know what they were drawing from the air? Because they were drawing a picture that they had already designed, and they were doing it from you're assuming that they didn't have the technology in their mind to be able to envision in their mind a giant fish that was a football field long. But they didn't, because I can't fathom making the concept in my brain and doing the calculations in math. There's no way that those people who are wearing animal skins could have ever had that in their brain, because I'm so much more superior and more intelligent than them now. So there's no fucking way they knew that. But that's because you're gauging everything on, I have a computer, and they didn't. Do you see? You can't calculate that information now because you don't have to, because you have a computer to do it for you. You don't have to know how long it would take and how many feet you would have to walk. And same thing when people are like, oh, they used a piece of wood in a barrel, and they drew a line in the barrel and they just rolled it a certain distance, and that's how they calculated the distance to build the pyramids. You're right, because they use that as their measuring stick, the same way you use a ruler. And that barrel they knew was an exact dimension or diameter around or circumference around because they built it that way. And if they took that and they put it a line and started at the line directly, painted a white line on the side of the barrel as it rolled the line, when you're looking at it from the side, and you see that, and you count how many times, then you put this is the red part is the bottom, so that when one hole goes around once, that's to there, and it's an equal distance, and that's exactly the right radius because they worked out the math to where if they do 32 of those circles, or 33 was the actual circles, it becomes pi, because they knew that they built the barrel at the exact dimension so that when they rolled it out exactly that many, it was that many feet, and they had to have exactly that squared and then tapering up from that. They did the math. So they were smart enough to know what was going on and to calculate all of that. In fact, they were smarter than we are now today because they were able to calculate that, then make it happen. We can't even do that now. We can just barely calculate it and figure out how they calculated it, and we still don't know how they built it. We can't even figure that out. So we don't want to, well, we're more superior, so it must have been aliens because they couldn't have built that, because if they did, well, then they would have to be smarter than we are because they would have to have technology that is not machines that could do the same job that our machines do now. We're a completely different timeline, and we've gone down the way of technology. So the only way that we can build those things now is we have to build a machine to do that stuff. They built other ways of building things, and they made structures out of earth. And it's just like, well, we do the same. We don't. We make ours out of we make them out of trees, completely different. We're not making them out of mud. Oh, but you're using the stuff that is available to you here on the land. No, we make it out of steel. So you use a rock, because that's what that is. It's an element that you melt down and turn into another shape. Right. And so then you're so superior because you figured that out. Yeah, because we can smelt that stuff. They couldn't do that in the past. They didn't need to. They didn't need to do that. They had other ways of making structures where they didn't have to do that. And guess what? Their structures didn't fall down because of earthquakes. Their structures didn't catch fire because they weren't made of wood. Their structures didn't poison you because they were made of a substance that's poisonous to the humans. Their structures that they built were completely, they didn't have any termites. I lived next door to a guy when I lived here in California before I moved to Arizona. So we're looking at 20 years ago. I lived next door to this guy who was from Mexico. His job here in America was to fumigate houses to kill rodents and termites. And so they would put a tent over the house, they'd fumigate it and kill everything in the house. Of course, you would all move out. It wouldn't kill you or your animals unless you left your animals in there at the time. And then you would move back in. So you'd leave for a day and come back the next day, and you could go in your hide, and everything would be dead. And you wouldn't have to worry about it. And he said, back in Mexico, I didn't have a job. And I said, why not? He said, because the houses are all made of earth back there. We don't have termites. We don't have termites there. But because all the houses in America are made from wood, you guys have to kill the termites. So I have a job. So he's making millions of dollars here in America because he was providing a service that his people, who we would call lower level, citizens, people of the earth that are not as developed as we are, they don't have the same problem because they make their houses out of earth. And he's like, we don't have to pay for all this insulation that you have to pay for because the earth is insulation. So houses are cooler in the summertime and warmer in the wintertime at a fraction of the cost. And we don't have to pay because we don't have spiders and ants and bugs and rodents living in our walls because our walls are solid because they're made of earth. Sometimes we get worms in there, and that's the worst thing that we have. So their houses are made cheaper than ours. They last longer. They're more efficient, and it costs them less money over time to maintain the same structure. And it costs them less money to heat it, less money to cool it, less money to maintain it, and less money to everything. And because of that, they don't have to have all the money that we have to have, so they don't have to pay $1 million for a home that's only worth $10,000. They pay $10,000 for a house that's only worth $10,000 instead of paying $150,000 or $1 million for a house that's only worth $10,000. And if you don't think that's true, look at the house you live in and find out how much it's insured for and how much it sells for. Okay? You're going to find out that your house, if it's $1 million house, if it burned to the ground, they're not going to pay you $1 million to build it. They're going to pay you about 70 grand to build that exact same structure, because that's really what your house is actually worth. Do you see? Because that's all it costs to make it again. So that's what your house is actually worth. But they charged you $1 million to move in it. But if it burns to the ground, or it gets blown up, or an earthquake knocks it down, they'll rebuild it for you. But your insurance companies only give you what it costs to rebuild that house. And then your other insurance will give you the cost of your furniture that it costs for new furniture to go in that house, not the $200 fork or the $5,000 table because it was an antique. They'll give you another table for $298. It looks just like it. It was made yesterday instead of one that was made 150 years ago. Too bad. We're not going to give you $1 million for your home. We're only going to give you what it's worth to build another one. Do you see? So that's a part of the distraction, that they don't have you looking at the reality. They have you looking at what they want you to look at. And that is, pay us a lot of money that we're not going to pay you. I'm not giving it back to you what it's worth if you sell it. But if you build it at $70,000, which we give you for, and then you sell it, yeah, you'll be able to sell it for $1 million. But it's only worth 70. That's the truth. And to see those things and to know those things is to free yourself, to realize the reality of their reality will shock you. Okay? Henry Ford, at the turn of the century, in the 1900s, early 1903, 4, 5, somewhere around there, said, if the Americans in this country today realized just how the economy of the world actually works, they would have a revolution. He said that. It's a quote. You can look it up. Rick, look that up. Henry Ford made that comment. Don't quote me on the year, but that was the comment that he made. You can look that up. And you'll see that it's true. Okay? And then if you know what I know, you know it is true. I wrote a book about it, How to Get Out of Debt, Surviving in the 21st Century. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Kari says that's from a song. And when they sing that song in concert, they say, free your mind and your ass will follow. Free your mind and your ass will follow. But they say when it's PG and on that record, it's free your mind and the rest will follow. That is the truth. Yeah, that is a song. It's a great song too. Okay. Right? Denise says, I work in insurance. It's very hard to get flood insurance, so people got screwed. That's the truth. They don't want to give you earthquake insurance out here in California because there's earthquakes here. They don't want to give you flood insurance in Arizona because there's floods there. And they know that it might happen to you. The insurance companies don't make money off of paying out. They make money off of you paying them. Okay. That's why they're telling you insurance for everything now. They're like, we have this car insurance for you that pay up front, pay us money because something's going to break down on your car. And if you haven't paid us money and your car breaks down, you're going to have to pay $1,000 out of your pocket. But if you pay us $350 a month, then we'll cover that for you. But then your premiums go up just like they do in car accidents. And then you owe them money until you pay it off. And then your premium never goes down. So now you owe them more money all the time. And it's just like Amazon has their Prime. Anybody who pays Amazon Prime, you're stupid. They're saying, if you ship a lot of things, it's cheaper for you to pay us $50 a month and get free, unlimited supply of amount of things that we ship for you. And if you don't ship more than $50 at a time, you have to pay money for the shipping. But they give you free shipping if you pay over $50 worth of shipping now as it is. But then they're telling you, pay us $50 a month and we'll give you free shipping. So what they're doing is they're telling you, give us the $50 that we would give you free shipping and we'll give you free shipping. Just give us the money up front. You'll save money in the long run because we won't charge you up to $50 every time. But if you buy over $50, we'll give you free shipping. And they do that so that you buy more than $50 worth of shit from them. And the same thing with Prime. You have to ship a ton of stuff to make that pay off. It's the same thing with your car insurance. Your insurance covers that you pay them. They hope you never get in a car accident. and you pay them every month consistently. And if you add up how much money you're paying them in a total year, I pay I don't know what it is. It's $400 every 3 months, $450 every 3 months for my car insurance. Okay, so what is that a year? Right, 3 times 4 is 12. I pay $1,200 a month, and I've been paying that on my vehicles now for 20 years, and I've never had an accident and had a claim. So I've given them $1,200 a month for free for 20 years. And I've never had to cash in on it. That's what they count on. Do you see how that works? But then it's required. Why? Because the insurance companies are paying the politicians to pass a law that says, I'm giving the politicians $1 million. They're making it illegal for you to not have insurance, which I paid them to make sure that you had to pay me. Do you see? So now it's in this state, you can't get a driver's license unless you have proof of insurance. So now I have to pay the state $400 a year to have my driver's license. And then I have to pay $1,200 a year to get my car insured. So I have the right to then drive free on the roads that I also have to pay taxes on so they can upkeep the roads because I'm the one driving on them. So I pay for the roads. I pay for the right to drive on the roads. I pay for the right to have a license to drive on the roads. Then I have to pay gas, which they call a tax on top of that because they want more money out of me. So I pay for my gasoline to drive, but I also have to pay for the oil because we're using these outdated machines that are over 100 years old. And I have to pay everybody, the oil companies, and guess who owns all of those? The same people. Do you see? So the same people who are making me get taxed, the same people who are enforcing a law, created the law, are the same people who own the car companies and the oil companies and the roadways and the running the state and the tax boards. All of those are the same people in control of all of those companies. So meanwhile, now I have to pay money. Barack Obama said all channels in the United States have to be high definition by this date, or you can't watch TV anymore. So now we had to buy brand new boxes and brand new televisions and upgrade so that we could watch high definition. But the cable company then sells you a package that says high definition channels, and you have to pay them extra. But wait, everything is already in high definition. So why is a high definition channel different? When you turn them on, people think they're different because they've already convinced you. The same people who are in control convinced you. I used to work in the movie industry. Movies were filmed in what's called widescreen. So when you're in the movie theater, it's dark and you can't see the black line at the top and the bottom because it's dark in there. And that movie had to be adjusted for people watching television because they said, why is there a black line at the top and the bottom of the screen? So what they did was they zoomed the picture in so that literally you're seeing the top and bottom is now fitted for your screen. Okay. But now what you're doing is you're actually missing what's on the far right and the far left, but you don't know that because you're not noticing that because you don't look at the difference. So when you're in a movie theater and then when you watch it at home on your television, it's zoomed in. So now you go, why is that so zoomed in so much on that guy's face? Because it was a scene that showed you what's on the right and the left of him in the movie theater, but there was a line at the top and the bottom that you couldn't see because the movie screen ended. And to fit that on your screen, they call that formatted for your screen. So they've convinced you that formatting is better for you. So now what they do is they take the high definition television and they format it to fit your screen and they zoom in slightly and they call that high definition channel because it's a little bit more definition than it is when it's zoomed out slightly. So you are used to the idea that the formatting for your television is the only way that you can see it because it drives your mind crazy because you see this line at the top and the bottom. So what they do is they just take this high definition and they just zoom in a little bit and charge you money for it and call it high definition. And everybody buys it and pays for it. So then that only worked until they started trying to get pay-per-view. And then pay-per-view, the whole concept of that, got people mad and didn't want to pay for it. So then they just called them plus channels. And now all the good programming is going to plus channels only so that all the other channels are now left for the poor people who are paying $200 a month for the cable. And everybody else is paying another $10 a month for that channel's plus channel because they want to watch the programming that's on there. And they don't give a shit if you pay for 100 of them or if you only pay for one because somebody's going to pay for all of them. because that's the only place you're going to get the good channeling. And then they give you the stuff in reruns, and they call that for free on the streaming platforms. But now they're making you pay for the streaming platforms, so you can see it the next day. You don't get to see it the day of when it's live, but you can see it streaming the next day. But you got to pay us another fee, and then you can watch it later on. That was the concept of movies on DVDs, and before that on VHS. If you didn't pay for it in the movie theater, you could wait a year, because they used to make you wait a year, and then you could watch it on VHS. But you had to pay $7, which was the same cost, but you could show it to 20 people at your house, right? But they made money off of it again. So then when they came out with DVDs, they did the same thing. And DVDs first came out, they were $79.99 for the DVD, which ended up being like a $2 DVD 5 years later. Okay. Well, now no one's watching those anymore because everything is instantaneous. So now they're charging you money to have it piped into your house so that you don't have to have a collection of DVDs. And some people are still collecting those, and they're selling those at high end cost because this DVD is rare now, because no one's utilizing them the way they did. This is the way they're making money and distracting you and telling you you have to collect these. They're worth a lot of money. But you can't get them for everything. You're like, there's this old Disney VHS tape that's $1 million. That's because they destroyed all but 4 of them. And who owns them? The rich people. And they'll sell them off to somebody who's got enough money because they want to make money. All of that is called capitalism. To capitalize on someone. Capitalism. Doesn't mean free market. That's free market means free market. But see, once they sold you on the lie of the word, capitalism, the art of capitalization, that's what that word means, is free trade. Just like equity is, in fact, equality. They're changing the word definition and lying to you and telling you a word means something that it doesn't. Citizen means slave. No, it doesn't. It means that I belong to this country. I am a free person in this country. That is called a citizen. No, that's the word slave. Means the word slave. Okay. You need to look up the origins of these words. They know you're not going to because you don't care. Because they teach you not to care, not to look up origins. It's the same thing with history. Do not look up history, because history is going to tell you a different story than the one they're telling you of history. Don't look over there. We'll tell you what you need to know. That's why I have that up on my wall and have for since probably 20 years, 15 years now. I put it up almost always unless I change something for a holiday, and I put it back up. It's 6 o'clock. Up next, what we want you to believe. That is a true statement. It is never more true than it is the concept of this illusion. To know that is the first step in avoiding a trap. That is what all the scrolls are teaching you. And I'm going to be doing shows and writing a book about it, and I'm going to be deciphering them, and people are going to say I'm crazy and I'm making shit up. Until you wake up and realize for yourself what they say. Many of you out there on this planet are going to think I'm a nut. And I don't care. I don't. I don't care who thinks I'm crazy. I only care about those who will pay attention and even think I'm crazy and say, I'm going to look it up for myself. And I'm going to try and translate that shit on my own and see, I'm going to prove him wrong. I respect that person much more than the one that goes, he's nuts, I'm out. Because that person is going down the road and asking questions and going down that rabbit hole. You're going to find the answers by asking questions. By not asking questions or not asking the right questions or only asking the people who are only wanting to tell you what they want you to know will never get you to answer anything, never get you to know anything. You will own nothing, but you will be happy. You will know nothing, but you will be happy. We'll do it all for you. We'll remember it for you wholesale. That was a book written by Philip K. Dick that became the movie of what was it called now? Arnold Schwarzenegger did the first one, and then the Irish actor did the second one, and it was Total Recall. They changed the name of "We'll Remember It For You" wholesale, the book, to Total Recall, but it's the same concept. Okay, it was the concept of in fact the entire movie. It at the end it leaves you with you can think the entire thing was a dream. You can the whole entire thing, the scenario happened in his head and wasn't real, or was it? That's the whole purpose of it. It's designed to make you wake up spiritually, but it's designed to get around the algorithms by saying, hey, it could have all just been fake. Same thing with the movie Jacob's Ladder. If you watch that, at the end of the movie, you go, well, wait a minute. So wait, he's still in Vietnam or is he not? And I'm not going to answer that because I'll ruin the movie for you because you're supposed to figure out. You should watch that. Tim Robbins, who a lot of people think is crazy. Tim Robbins is most of his movies that he did have that kind of scenario and feel and vibe to his movies, whether they're true stories or not, because some of the movies he's done are true stories, and some of them are based on true stories, and others are kind of like the Eric the Viking was loosely based on the comedy around that whole thing, but it is about the gods being children and waking up the gods and waking up, and Eric is the only person who's actually enlightened in the entire movie. And he sounds crazy because he's trying to figure life out. And it's showing you not to just follow religion for what they're telling you or history because of how outrageous history is painting a narrative about, like, say, Vikings. So they're showing you how history paints the Vikings and then showing you how Viking life actually was, even though they're making fun of the religion itself, because of Monty Python did that about all religion, saying you should take all religions with a grain of salt. They weren't anti-religion. They weren't anti-spirituality. They were anti-established orthodoxy because they knew in the 60s when they started the whole circus that they knew that the establishment had been corrupted and that what they were teaching you was a narrative of evil. But you have to look, they're trying to expand your consciousness to look beyond their reality that they're trying to teach you and see what's really going on. So that was, when I said the circus, it was Monty Python's Flying Circus was the name of their television show that was on the air in the 60s and 70s over in the UK. And then reruns, you can still find them. And then they went on to make movies in Hollywood and around the world that were furthering their ideology. And then they all went off to do their own things and then still ventured back to help one another. They still do to this day. And most of the stuff that they make is showing you a reality that is on its surface a little crazy, but it's very close to reality, like A Fish Called Wanda, where three of the guys from Monty Python were involved in that. Two were starred in it. And they literally, that movie was a little crazy like Pulp Fiction, but it was a narrative that they were trying to show you that is esoteric. Pulp Fiction, for instance, and all of those movies that were written and made by that gentleman as well. Sound crazy, look crazy, but they're showing you a reality that is too surreal. It's surreal. It's too real, and it's too normal. But it is what's going on in a way, but it's also trying to expand your consciousness. And these are people around the world that are trying to get by algorithms to show you this. And I've done that in the books that I've written so far. I'm doing that more blatantly in the book that I'm currently writing. Once I get that published, you'll understand that. And I'm openly discussing it on here. And I'm surprised the algorithms don't shut me down. But I do know that they are a team of people keeping that from happening. So it's a little bit more difficult for them to do, but they try. All right, guys, I got to go because it's now 6 p.m. and I got to do dinner. Let me finish this. Let's finish this. There's a minute and a half left. Let's finish this session.
In other words, at that time there were hills overlooking these lines. Ra, I am Ra. This will be the final full question of this session. The entire smoothness, as you see this area now, was built up in many places in hills. The time/space continuum has proceeded with wind and weather, as you would say, to erode to a great extent both the somewhat formidable structures of Earth designed at that time and the nature of the surrounding countryside. 20.43 Questioner: I think I understand then. Then these lines are just the faint traces of what used to be there? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. 20.44 Questioner: Thank you. We need to know whether or not it is possible to continue with another session later today and if there is anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable. Ra: I am Ra. It is possible. We ask that you observe carefully the alignment of the instrument. Otherwise, you are conscientious. Is there any short query before we close? 20.45 Questioner: I intend in the next session to focus on the development of the positively oriented entities in the first 25,000 years. I know that you can't make suggestions. But this seems to me to be the. I hope that I am going in the right path in investigating the entire development and influences in the history of our third density. Can you give me any comment on this at all? Ra: I am Ra. The choices are yours according to your discernment. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one Creator. Adonai.
Okay, so you'll see why I was spending as much time on here, because now we're going to shift, and he's going to go backwards in time, and he's going to start from how the evolution started and the cycle started here, which is we're still going to be the cyclical nature and talking about it. That's another reason why I spent as much time this week on that, because next week we're going to be talking then more about the cyclical nature of nature itself. Okay, so that's why I spent the time I did going through that 369 and the 0 point, getting to where we are. Again, getting ahead of myself, but you'll see why when we get into that next week. So literally the modus operandi of evil is to distract you away from the knowledge that you will gain and learn by looking around you at nature, at the buildings, at the structures, at things from the past that were built, at the history itself in the past, because all of that they know is the cyclical nature of nature itself. Okay, so they're controlling that by having you focus on the now. And then when you hear people in spirituality saying, well, you need to focus on being now and being present in the now, and you're like, well, but that's what you just said that the evil people are doing. But they're having you focus only on their now, their version of now, which is consume, buy, be a slave, go to work for someone else. You don't have enough money. They keep you from making enough money to get ahead, so that you're addicted to them, addicted to their jobs, and doing jobs you don't want to do in a life that you don't want to do. And then they're like, oh, but you have to also focus on trying to make more money to consume. And the more evil you are, the more you're rewarded. The more you act like us, the more you're rewarded, but you'll never get to sit at the top table where the high people are. You'll only get to sit at the smaller tables there, but we will reward you. So that is, if you focus on their religion and become one of them, they'll bring you into the system and bring you up, but never give you the high table. And they'll bring you up as far as you want to go until they don't need you anymore, or they kill you off, or they throw you off to the side, or they destroy you because you pissed them off in some way, because you're now under their control. And that's what they want you to do. And as long as you focus on that and you play their game, you will become rich and famous and all those things. And that's all you'll ever get. You'll never be on top. You'll never be in charge. You'll never be a king. You'll never rule the roost. But you'll be happy. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Do you see? You'll control nothing, but you'll be happy. That is the Matrix. That is literally what they're trying to show you in the Matrix, that you're oblivious will give you a good life. But we own you. We own everything. We own everything about you. We're giving you and feeding you everything that you have as your reality. We'll give it all to you, as long as you just let us. Sell your soul to me. I'm the devil. And I'll make your whole life heaven. It's not really going to be, and you'll never go anywhere, and you'll never graduate. But you don't know that because I'm not telling you that. Do you see? Keep up with the Joneses, man. Get that new car, go for that house. But nowadays, they're not even letting you do that. Now they're like, oh, you got to rent. You got to lease a car, you got to rent a house. and you got to work at a job that you don't like. And, oh, by the way, you can't grow any of your own food. We can't have that shit for free. You got to go down to the store and get it. We can turn all that off. If you don't do what we tell you to do, we'll turn you off. And they're solidifying their control more and more and more because more and more people are standing up and saying no to them. Okay. The corporation that owns Bud Light worldwide, other people have said the same thing I did. You guys need to look at who the parent company is that owns Budweiser, because everybody's owned. Modelo's making the number one top dog now. Modelo is owned by the same company who owns Anheuser-Busch. So the company was making the same amount of money, but now they're not, because the more people around the world did what I just did and told people about that a few weeks ago. And now that company's tanking. Okay. And the same thing should be happening to Target, and the same thing should be happening worldwide to every company that is going woke, because the pocketbook is the controlling factor for them. They're like, we will turn you off. Yeah. Well, what happens if everybody leaves Facebook? What happens if people just start leaving Facebook? Guess what happened to Twitter? Right now, Facebook's like, Meta is like, well, we're starting this new one. And so all these people are like, I'm leaving Twitter, and they're going to go out of business. No, they're not. They're just not going to make $1 trillion a second. What's going to happen is all the progressives are going to go over to that one, and they're going to be happy with them little selves in their own little world. And all the conservatives are going to stay on Twitter, and they're going to be happy with them little selves too. But that's not going to be enough for them, because they have to turn those people off. So then what they're going to do is they're going to turn you off from other places. They're going to go, well, if you're still on Twitter, you can't be on Facebook, and you can't be over here. So the lines are now being drawn, which is okay, because what's happening is originally 4 years ago, they controlled the entire narrative. Now they don't. So now what they're trying to do is align people, just like they did with the news. You're either watching one or the other. And so now they don't control everything, because you have free market. And some people go, oh, no. Oh, that Elon Musk, he's just one of them. And it's all just a lie. If it was, they wouldn't be trying to kill him. I mean, they're not literally physically trying to kill him, but they wouldn't be physically trying to destroy him and his company. And they have been, until he fought back, because the government's paying him money because he has the best technology, right? Everyone's like, oh, he's in league with the government, so it's all a lie. Now the truth is, they backed off of him. Why did they back off of him? Because he has the best space program, and the government of the world, they want that stuff to be used right now, so they're paying him. So he went to the government and said, you need to tell those people to back off of trying to destroy me, or I'm going to start selling my wares to companies that you don't want, like the Chinese or the Russians, because it's free enterprise, right? And so they were like, you can't do that. You have a contract. I'll sue you and get out of the contract. You don't own me. I can have a contract with them as well. Okay, hold up. What if we don't ruin Tesla and we back off a little bit on Twitter? Okay. That's what went on for real behind the scenes. Okay. So I know that some of the people, right? Some of the people will say about that the entire thing is just a scenario that is them lying to us about the entire thing. If you get that crazy about stuff, then you'll be laying on the floor sucking on a Cheerio and afraid to move, because you'll have yourself so crazed out that you're like, oh my God, everything's a lie. Nothing's true. It's all a lie, man. It's so much of a lie. I can't do anything. And that's what they want. They want fear. So you have to look around. Okay. You have to look around, and you have to see that it's not as bad. That they're teaching you fear and telling you that everything is a lie, because they're lying to you. That's why I love that my buddy said this to me 30 years ago, and it made me think, and that's why I tell people this. When he looked at me and said, here's an allegory for you to play with. He said, I am a compulsive liar. Every word that comes out of my mouth is a lie. I never tell the truth. And I'm lying to you right now. That can fuck you up for the rest of your life. You can sit there pondering that like it's a scenario, like it's an equation that you can't solve. Wait a minute. He says he's a compulsive liar, and he never tells the truth. And then he says he's lying to me. So does that mean he's telling the truth, or does that mean he's lying? That's the scenario. That's literally, I told you that before, that Captain Jack Sparrow said that. not those words, but it was another parable on that. When he was in there in the the treasure cave, and he said, "No, I'm a thief." It's one thing that you can count on is a thief is honestly dishonest. Honestly, you can count on that. It's the people who are not dishonest that you can't count on whether they're being honest or dishonest. Because a thief is a thief, right? If it smells like a rose, it is a rose. If it smells like shit, it is. Or walks like a duck, talks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it is a duck. So he's saying somebody who is evil, that's what they're going to be. So they're honestly evil. You can count on them to be evil. It's the people who are pretending to not be evil are the ones you can't count on because you don't know, because they're lying to you. So those people who are openly, blatantly lying to you, you can count on them to be that way. They're not trying to hide it from you. Those are the most honest people, even though they're dishonest. That was what he meant. It's the people who are trying to tell you that they're honest that are not. Those are the ones you got to look out for. And that was what Captain Jack was saying in that scenario. That's saying the same thing. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing its existence. Do you see? All right, guys. Have a great night. I love you guys. I will see you guys next week. Share this out, share this out, share this out. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world or when in the world you are tuning into the show.